Let's get this thing started, shall we? Welcome. Order 42, Rob, and Jim. Jim is here, and I forgot to unmute you.
Yay!
But you're on there now.
Yeah.
And Grindhead Jim just subscribed. Oh, and I got an emote.
I did a couple days ago.
I got an emote.
It lets you share it.
So you were the one.
That was me.
I was and the mask is, it's okay. The alpha thing is messed up now because of how I did things.
Oh.
But it's okay. You know what?
It's
we'll
okay.
just fix it right now because that's how we can do this.
Really,
yeah.
it's more because you'll see it in the whole show and be like,
oh, it's gonna bother me. It's definitely gonna bother me.
I know.
Because that's how I roll.
I know.
So
I know.
Filters. Image
Good day
mask.
to you, Bucho. Good day-o to Bucho.
Bucho!
And don't say anything nice to Nightbot. Nightbot's on my poopy list. Got coal in his stocking.
You know,
we got to get you a new bot, is what it is. I'm just saying, and I know exactly which one to get you. You don't have to run a separate thing if you don't want to. It's still web-based. It's fine.
What is it, Streamlabs?
Yeah.
Oh. Well,
it wasn't web-based.
That's the thing, I have Streamlabs. But
yeah, I prefer the locally hosted one because it's a separate program. Gives you a little bit more like control like in the moment, but the web-based one works fine too. So
right. Hey. It's a thing.
You're a thing.
Welcome. And yes, Nightbot, just chill out today. Okay? Jim's here. Everything's going to be okay. Just chill.
He's like, Jim's here. Well,
so I mean, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No. I was just making fun of Nightbot. It's fine. I have plenty of time to do that.
Yeah. But yeah. How's it been? How's the new year treating you so far? It's the same.
Good.
But anyway.
Good. I popped out some scotch New Year's Eve. Only mildly regretted it. It basically added an extra 20 minutes to my recovery time. But other than that, it was pretty good. No, it's been really cool. I mean, I struggle with depression. A lot of people do, and then around the holidays, it gets worse for me because of my past and everything. And I had one day where it was really, really, really rough, and buddy of mine's like, why don't you just type out what you're thinking? So I said, okay. And I was like, this is stupid, but I did. And I just typed like 3 pages of stuff, and then kind of had a come to Godzilla moment. And I don't know what, but when I woke up the next morning, it was like someone took 70-pound weights off my shoulders, and I was fine. I've been good ever since. And that doesn't mean that depression just goes away or anything, but that particularly bad feeling, and it had been building for a while, just because the month of December sucks. Spoiler alert, both my parents died in December, for those of you that don't know. So it's always rough this time of year. And then as if on cue, the next day, I woke up, I'm like, I'm feeling good. I'm all right. I'm going to go into work. I'm going to tackle this crap. And my boss's boss, who actually was the one that hired me, but she'd been gone for like 2 weeks. I hadn't talked to her. We're very much on the same wavelength. We're both into like punk music, and we're both like tech nerds and everything. So I've always gotten along with her, but I've always had this thing that since she's gotten promoted into this slot, like she's really focused on certain things. And I'm like, she's going to fire me. I know it. It's completely irrational. Right. But she basically says to me, by the way, after we get this and this done, I want to promote you. I want to put you in this certain queue because this is, we're moving our focus towards exactly the way you do things as a company. And I want you to spearhead this. And I'm like, okay,
That's awesome.
She didn't say anything about a raise, but I'm going to ask for one. But it was just like a pretty good string of stuff. And I got some nice Christmas presents from friends and loved ones, which was pretty cool. Although one of them, which I'm looking at right now, I'm kind of like, maybe I should change my tune a little bit if this is what they get me. They got me a Care Bears bear, but they got me the grumpy one. I'm like, maybe I should be nicer to these people, But now good.
That's always my wife's favorite too, by the way. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. But overall, I'm doing good. And during all of I've had extra downtime from the holidays, as a lot of people do. I've been watching a lot of stuff, as you know, which is part of why I'm here today.
Yeah.
So, and I got some new hats, including this one.
Oh yeah, I've seen many of your hats on the old Twitter and
Instagram. Yep.
Yeah.
I don't put out every hat that I get, because that would be, first of all, it would all be Instagram would just be me in hats, which I guess that's really all it is anyway, huh?
Hey,
kinda. Yeah.
Hey, it's a thing.
This morning,
it's definitely a thing.
I was shopping for a vest, and I'm narrowing it down because I have all these patches, and I was going to put them on a hoodie, but there's like 3 days a year that I can wear a hoodie in this damn town.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at vests now, and I'm like, that's so cheesy, but that's what people do with metal patches, I guess. So it's weird. Like I'm upping my game, but I'm also like going back. Friends of mine were asking me to do something, and they're like, well, it's gonna be kind of formal dress. I'm like, I have khaki shorts. That was exactly what I said. It's exactly what I said. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, ah. And then my retort would be, well, my vest has a collar. I mean, granted, there's lots of blood and stuff on it, but you'll be fine. It's okay.
It's good.
Yeah, it is good.
Real quick, I want to say hi to Eagle and Vicky came in here, it's great to see you.
Yes, that was why I saluted.
Yeah, Octavius is here. Welcome, Octavius.
Yes.
Nightbot, you pulled that thing up, no problem.
Bucho did it. Bucho did it. Nightbot was just following orders.
Well, but it worked. So that's a thing, right? Look, you got to be nice.
This is why we have a generation of banal, mediocre people, because just doing their normal job is enough. If Nightbot's going to grow up to be a good
that's a whole thing.
Adult.
Yeah, that's a whole thing. But we don't. Hey, we're here for a purpose, fun times. Because Cobra Kai is a whole nother thing.
Oh yeah, I watched that. I binged that yesterday.
Yeah, see that I haven't finished that yet, so I can't talk a whole lot about it.
I will say that yes. Yes.
No, it's not Bucho that's mediocre. Yeah.
Bucho is anything but mediocre. He is stupendiferous. I even made up a word for him.
Yeah, that's yeah. But you're absolutely right in what you said about that.
Thank you.
That's interesting. But also, I want to thank you because you were the one that the mysterious sub the other day, where I was like, who? I just got a sub. I don't know why or how.
Yeah, mine had expired, and I forgot which card was attached, and then I was like, oh, before I forget, and I just went through all the ones that had happened to. It was like 3 or 4 of them, and I was like, bing, 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 bing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course.
Very much. And I want to also thank you. I love the fact that I'm bleeding from the hands.
That's amazing.
No,
I love that too. No, I don't.
No. Who says that? Like, I'm bleeding from the hands. Anyway.
I mean, people like yourself do, apparently.
But no, I love the fact that now even blind hosts or hosts before you go live, you can now see those. Yes. Even though they don't show up in the thing up here in my list from Streamlabs. But now I have a thing. So yes, Rez 1198. Thank you for the host. Appreciate that. So yeah, I'm kind of curious. You and I had discussed the Godfather. Oh, and look, there you go.
I
There's
thought I had
Jim, the
already done it.
host.
I had to do it
No,
again.
it's okay. I appreciate
Yep.
it.
Yep.
But you and I have discussed this whole Godfather 3 Coda Death of Michael Corleone
Yes, sir.
extravaganza disc
Yes.
of doom. So I'm kind
We
of
have
curious.
discussed
What's
it
your
privately, yes.
Yeah, but what's your take on it? Because I have since watched it, and I have my own little thoughts. But I was curious. What were your ending thoughts with it?
The short version on it for me is that it is far better than the cinematic cut. Things make more sense, and the ending is more satisfying. It's more, everything is more Godfather-esque, but I do feel like the cinematic and the new version, that they're complementary. It helps having seen the cinematic one going into this one a little bit, because there is some stuff that's completely cut out that is interesting backstory. Like, it'd be kind of like, I kind of reverse them. So I kind of feel like the new version should have come out first, and then the original version should come out second, just as like, oh, this is interesting, right?
Yeah.
But I firmly believe that if this version was the one that had been released original, at the first in cinemas, it would have a far better legacy than it in fact does. I really believe that.
I agree, but I kind of look at it as, in a way, it's hard to divorce myself from the original because I've watched the original for so long.
Right.
The Godfather 3.
And I don't think anyone should ever do that.
What?
I don't think that you should divorce yourself from it. That's how way you grew up.
Well, I mean, it's hard for me to judge it on the merit of, or like, you know what I mean, if it had come out. I have no idea. I feel like Sofia Coppola would have probably still been blasted.
Oh, sure. I will say that the way that the editing and pacing were done in this new version does her some favors. And I think
Like cutting out some stuff?
yeah. Because the scenes that she's featured in now, her performance makes a bit more sense in context than it had before. Because I think for a long time the defense was, this character is naive and kind of, frankly, less intelligent about things going on around them, just by virtue of a lack of experience. Well, they always say, from an acting perspective, you pull your truths from within to make the character, and well, I think she did that. So I would argue that you put a more experienced actor in that role, and they're going to try and bring some melodrama to it that doesn't need to be there. You know what I mean? Because the character, is written to be naive enough to think that they can pull this off. They can pull off this, like, hey, I'm going to go to bed with my cousin. First of all, if you're that stupid to go to bed with your cousin, no matter how nice they are to you, right there, that tells me I'm willing to believe every other stupid thing you do. Every other one.
Yeah.
And I mean, ultimately, like, at the end, spoilers, the ending is very similar. Like, the main events that happen, they didn't change who dies and all that stuff. And although it hits harder in a good way, because of the way that they have changed the physical structure of the ending. And I still believe that his daughter being the one that dies is a far, far greater blow to the family than if he had been shot. Because things would just move on. You know what I mean? So for him to feel the pain and treachery and betrayal and blah, 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 that had to happen. And I think the way it's framed at the end 'Cause I think most of the really cool interplay stuff, the intercuts at the end, were kept intact because that is really well done, even in the original. They just trimmed off some edges and stuff like that. The biggest changes were in the beginning, and thank Godzilla they did that, because the movie originally just, you're like, okay, when's it gonna start? Okay, I get it. He's okay. All right. It's like a lot of false starts on the original cut, and this one you're kind of cut to the chase. You know, a lot of some cool cinematography in the original opening, but it's like, I don't need to sit here for 20 minutes for what you can tell me a little bit of expository dialogue, which is exactly what they did. And it wasn't like they just did an exposition dump. It's a natural conversation. It tells you everything you need to know, and you get to explore the other relationships better. Like, things that were kind of rushed through, you now get to kind of flesh out, and stuff that was drug along is cut down. Like, it just kind of changes the focus of where the storytelling is going in a very effective way, I think.
Yeah, and I guess the way that because I did do a YouTube video about it, right?
Which I haven't seen yet.
It's not out yet. I'm probably going to put that out.
I'll explain why.
Huh?
I would explain why I didn't see it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But no, I at first I was waiting because I was like, I don't want to put it out and then have this discussion with you. But then I was thinking, really, honestly, in most cases, the Twitch audience and the YouTube audience are kind of two separate audiences.
Yeah.
And for those who had already seen this, then it's no big deal. They can just skip it or whatever. But anyway, the way I looked at it was, for me, as a fan of the movies, and always saw Godfather 3 as like another chapter, this was interesting because just the title helped me recontextualize it as a oh, and by the way, those first two movies were the main story. By the way, this is what happened to Michael at the end, kind of thing.
Right. And
almost
yes.
And so for that, it was kind of cool. But I think for fans of The Godfather, for the most part, I compared it to almost like a remix, of a song that you already know. It's not going to blow your mind. It's not going to destroy everything. It's just a cool, hey, this is kind of neat. The only difference is going forward, I think he's basically saying this is the definitive cut. So if you're coming to The Godfather the first time, the series for the first time, this is the one to watch first.
Strongly agree.
Yeah.
I think that it tonally fits better with the other two. And again, because of the title, you're not expecting a Godfather, a green figure. You're not expecting a Godfather 3. Because I do think that calling it Godfather Part 3 was a disservice, because it's not what it was designed to be. It certainly has that, or poetry rhymes. It certainly has that kind of vibe going to it. But it is you don't necessarily have to know who these people are, because every aspect of the story you need to know is contained in that story. Like, they spell it out. Hey, you feel bad for killing your brother? Yeah, I feel bad for killing my brother. They tell you all this stuff. So it certainly helps to have seen the other ones. Whereas Godfather Part 1 and 2, like, they have to be like, you have to have them. One without the other is just, you can't watch two before you can't.
Yeah, and they're seamless.
Yeah.
They're seamless in a way. We talked about this, where it's like, if I'm just like, oh, they're playing the Godfather marathon, and I come into it, I have to really sit and think, okay, which one is this? Because they work so well together. But
now, I could argue that there'd be a cool way to recut all three, like this super cut, So kind of using the part 2 as the template, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you could do a chronological template, a chronological cut would be kind of interesting. Because you could take all the old stuff from part 2, put it in the front, and then front load this, and then move this around. And then as the movie goes along, there's more and more intercutting. So it becomes more of a thing. Like, it'd be kind of cool to have, like, the end. Yeah, there'd be cool things to do where you're like, it'd be almost like the series finale for Next Generation, where it's constantly switching back and forth, where it's almost disorienting, or at least in that case it was meant to be, and it was. But there's because of the way that these films were made, there's so much you could kind of do with it, and there's so much material there that you could have a lot of fun with it. And you could even take elements from the original cut of 3, reintegrate it into the super long 12-hour whatever that would be. Right. You can make it episodic. I mean, you can do all kinds of cool stuff, but that goes to Coppola's vision. Like, he shot a lot of stuff, and he cuts it down and all this stuff. And
but ultimately, oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, you're fine.
Okay. But no, my only problem was I don't understand why Jabba the Hutt had to be in there. I mean,
yeah, what's even worse is that when you try to take Huttese and put an Italian accent on it, it gets really weird. Oh, Baduka, hey, cannoli. Like, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Oh, Baduda, more sauce, bro.
The whole time I'm watching it, I'm like, is he going to do anything? I mean, I knew that he wasn't, but it was this thing where it's like, are we going to see some really wacky stuff in here?
I gotta say, though, changing the Pope Mobile to an ATST, that worked. That worked for me in a big bad way, man. That was good. That was like a toyga.
So I don't know. We're kidding, by the way, of course.
Yeah, it wasn't an ATST. It was an AT-AT. Sorry.
Right,
yeah.
Right,
I thought it would be funnier because he's on 2 legs. He'll fall over easier because he's the Pope and he's old. Nah, stability in the Vatican for the.
And power.
There's no right.
I don't know.
Your Excellency, the shield will be down in a moment. You may start your landing. Okay. And you just get a picture of the Pope just doing like his best Vader across arm.
No, I was just thinking you could really mix the Palpatine becoming the Emperor from the new Pope, and he's all there with the votes, and he's all like, no. You know what I mean? Like, he's like really surprised, but he's not, I don't know.
The Catholic Church will be reorganized into the first Catholic Empire. Wait, the first one? There's been a couple of those, but...
Yeah, but they just come out and say it, it's not...
Right.
They're not going to beat around the bush here.
Right.
But...
Spoilers. I just got notification the delivery's on its way. It should be here in a few minutes. So, folks, if I am suddenly disappeared, it's
just let me know, and I'll just put the camera on me, and I'll.
If you see me go doing this, you'll be fine.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So. Speaking of crazy epic and whatnot,
yes.
and the whatnots.
Oh yes.
I want to know what was the decision process for you to say after all this time it's time to try the Clone Wars?
Yeah. You want to know like why that happened?
Yeah, like what because you and I had talked about it a few times.
Yep.
You'd always avoided it. But what was the because I think it would be interesting for somebody who's, maybe finishing the Mandalorian here, and they're like, "Oh, that was pretty cool." But what was it for you that made that made you go?
I think that was part of it. It was finishing the Mandalorian, kind of riding the high from that. A friend of mine bought themselves like a new TV as a reward around the holidays, and at my behest, they were rewatching the prequels, and then they were going to see the original trilogy for the first time. They'd seen the prequels, but never saw the original trilogy. Yeah.
Wow.
They just never got around to it. They're more of an episodic show person. They don't really watch a lot of films. They do documentaries and episodic television. They just never got around to it, and they're my age. And I says, no, you gotta see this. He said, well, I know the story. I'm like, yeah, it's not the same. You gotta watch it. So, and they haven't gotten through Empire or Jedi yet. They did watch A New Hope yesterday, I think it was, and they're like, that was really good. I'm like, I know. Come on.
Yeah.
They're watching it for the first time, and they're watching it in 4K. So it's like, oh, wow, So I think between, riding high for the Mandalorian and seeing that they were going to do that, and I was like, well, what's the best way to get them to watch that? And I had happened to, hello out there in TV land. I guess I was looking up like the chronological order of stuff, and I'm like, do I try to throw everything at them, and then I came across, I think I'd come across by accident the Clone War chronological thing.
Yes.
And I went, and I had downtime. I'm like, I got nothing to, sure. Let's just do it. Let's try it. I respect Rob's opinion. And people love that show for a reason. They were clamoring for it to come back for some reason.
Felt like there was a butt in there, but go ahead.
And it is finally complete. Like, I don't have to worry about it, because that's the main reason I didn't watch it. There's two reasons. One, I knew it wasn't a complete series, and I can't do that. I won't.
Right.
Unless it's something that I know is moving forward, like Cobra Kai. Like, I know it's going somewhere. And that's a cash cow for Netflix. That's not going anywhere. And it's not like some weird rights thing like with Marvel or whatever. So I'm confident.
Uh-oh.
That it will stick around. So, but with something like that, I respect people that like the show. Maybe a little weakness. And did you hear all that?
You said something about it sticking around, and then you glitched out for 45
seconds.
Minutes. Okay.
It wasn't that long.
Yeah.
Basically, just knowing that there's an established fan base that really holds true to it, and knowing it's complete, I was good to go. The other thing was, I had seen the original Clone Wars film, which was basically a pilot for the show.
Yeah.
And rewatching it in context, it helped. But whoever's idea it was to put that in cinemas, they need punched in the mouth. That's not a movie. It's not. I'm sorry. It's a few episodes of the show strung together.
Yeah, it's a tiny...
It's such a small arc. Yeah. And
it's weird.
It was dumb. And when you watch it in chronological order, like, I can see why watching it in episodic order, it's kind of cool to jump back and forth to a certain degree. But if you're watching the first time out, go to StarWars.com, look up the chronological order, watch everything in that order, and it's just way better.
For sure.
But I watched it in like all 8 seasons in like 3 or 4 days, I think it was, if that. But part of that, and you were like, you're just zooming. Like, well, part of it was that work was so slow that I could watch episodes in between. Like, I got like a total of 10 calls in over like 5 days.
Right.
And they were short calls. So I was just like, well, you punch them in the mouth first, see if they have an excuse, Octavius. And if the excuse that they give you is bad, then you go for the throat. That's the way it works.
I just saw
That's
that.
the way that you do that. Yeah.
By the way, I just posted the if anybody's interested,
see that
chronological order.
Yeah.
It's if you're gonna do it, if you're gonna do this, that's the way to go.
Yes, I strong agree. And the episodes are relatively short. They're around 26 minutes each. Yeah. But when you figure there's an average, if you take all the seasons put together, there's an average of around 15 episodes per season-ish, 18. Yeah. If you average in the fact that the last 2 seasons are a little bit shorter. There's a time investment there, and I had the advantage of having the time. Like if this was going to be something I would only be able to do on weekends or something, it would take you forever. I don't know that I would have done that. So if you're really serious about it and you can dedicate the time and you have maybe some vacation saved up, like just take an extra day off of work and do it over a 3-day weekend and just sit in with some snacks and enjoy it. That's my and if for no other reason to at least get through, honestly, all 3 of the first 3 seasons, because not until like the end of the 3rd season that it really starts to ramp up. And Rebels to a certain degree suffers from that too, although it takes a little bit less time to get going. Yeah. Not by a lot, because both series suffer from. They're trying for a general audience in the very beginning, and they want to be super accessible. They want to hook you into the story, but it comes across as very Saturday morning cartoonish. Villain of the week, and I'll be right back.
Okay. I will just discuss my quick thoughts on it, which most of you know that I had done a very awesome podcast alongside our good friend Bucho, who is maybe in the chat. He may be busy, maybe like on and off, and that's okay. But I've seen it 3 times all the way through. The first time I started watching around the mid first season mark, and then I watched the first season as they came out. Yeah. Watching it that way is not preferable. Of course, there was a week minimum in between episodes. Of course, different seasons, there was more time between. So Bucho is here. And by the way, let's just, while we're here. Oh, that's not, it's just clones. There you go. It's in there. If you're interested, you can listen to that. It is a episode by episode breakdown, which is awesome. But the thing that I love about the Clone Wars is that, to me, it's a lot like, if we're going to go the music route, right? To me, it's like you're at a concert for a band that you're just a casual fan of, right? Suddenly they start playing a song that you don't recognize, but everybody else is like, oh, yeah. And you're like, I don't know what this is. But to me, that's what the Clone Wars is like, especially when you're thinking of Star Wars in general. To me, it enriches everything. And then it kind of gives you context in different ways to other movies. So I agree. It's definitely a time investment. But I feel like, especially in the prequels, it definitely enriches that. But it also recontextualizes some things throughout all of the movies. It's weird how some of the decisions made in a series that was done way after the original trilogy and the prequels can have so much effect on everything. It's kind of amazing. So in a lot of ways, I feel like it's kind of like the B-sides in a way, but then by the end of it, you start to realize, okay, we've spent more time with Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka than we ever did with Luke and with Han and Leia. Because just the amount of time that we invested with them. So I don't know. I love the Clone Wars. I think it's great. I've seen it 3 times now. Which I didn't really go into. That second time that I watched it, I did go to that chronological order link that I put in chat. And Yeah, it was much better the second time, because I think it's just because of the production time. It took so much time to get those episodes done that some episodes were finished earlier than others, and they were kind of like, well, crap, let's just go ahead and put that out without really any concern about the way things worked story-wise, which doesn't seem to make sense. It also feels a lot like, because Lucas financed at least the first few seasons. I don't know if he financed the whole thing, but I feel like he kind of did the Clone Wars as so this will be a fun side project. You know what I mean? But then I think what ended up happening. Jam is back. What's up? I think that what ended up happening was that the movie came out as a way to help finance the rest of the show.
Which makes sense, because people just went and were like, oh, but the thing was, the expectation was that you were going to see the whole Clone Wars in a 3-act structure. And it just wasn't, it wasn't marketed right. And it certainly did well at the box office, as I recall. But I agree with what you were saying before, is that just based on character investment alone, character development, it's worth the watch. And without going into great detail, which we can, but I will say that as an overall thing, episode 3 is uniquely and deeply affected by what happens with the series. And I will go so far as to say that it even goes so far as to justify the tone of the first and second film. Although the second film still has the worst love story of all time.
It's so sad because
yeah,
I actually really like Hayden Christensen.
Me too.
I've been a fan.
I like
of
him
Natalie
more
Portman.
now.
Huh?
I like him more now.
Yeah, but I mean, even like Natalie Portman, I'm a fan of. I've been a fan of her work ever since The Professional.
Yes. Amazing film. So
yeah, it was always like, why doesn't this work? And then the music is so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's.
But you get the series pays off everything. Any race you've ever seen for like one frame of film, they are somewhere in this series. They do this. They have this way of explaining the lore without beating you over the head with exposition. They have a way of fleshing out things without making it feel like, well, we can put this race in here. They did a good job of that. As with any TV series, there are a lot of episodes where you're just like, why is this here? This is fun. I enjoyed it. It's a cool little story, but I don't need this. Let's go back to what's important. And it helps to know where it's going, to have already seen episode 3, to know, okay, this is where we're headed. And the only other thing, and this is one thing that the series did way too much was put characters are going to live in peril. Like, right. I know they're going to live. I just want to see how they live. But don't. Just don't. See, like, I know.
The only thing that I will say in defense of that, in defense of the way that they did that,
well, because future generations might watch it in order and all that stuff.
I mean, there's plenty of kids that's the only Star Wars they've ever seen.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, you know what I mean? It's like that was their entry point to Star Wars, was the Clone Wars. So in a lot of ways, they had to still. I mean, look, I totally get what you're saying. It's like, yeah, she's gonna live, or yeah, he's gonna live, or whatever. You know this.
Yeah.
And it's just like, things that happen in Rebels. It was like, well, that's got to turn out differently because this happens later.
Right.
or this person's way down here in the thing, and
Yeah.
But it's still.
So before we get too far off, Bucho brings up a good point. Hayden does a really effective job of showing he has a dark side in him, but that same thing makes it confusing as to why Padme doesn't run from him, because Hayden's flat out creepy in some of those scenes before he turns for good. I can explain this. They fell in love before he went super dark. He's also a teenager in that film, in the second one. And teenagers do dark shit. I never grew out of it myself. But
I just love the way you said that. It's funny.
But I got to be honest, like even though I knew she was ill, my mother's death was pretty sudden relative to what we thought was happening. And I can tell you, if there was a village I could go to and just kill cancer with my bare hands, I would have done it. I was mad in that way. I was hurt. And so I can relate to that. And I think that as someone who's deeply in love with him, she would certainly be like, I understand. I'm worried about him. I don't want this for him, but I get it, And I think that's why I think that she saw it from her perspective. The light in him was far greater than the dark, and that she felt a responsibility to give him something to hang on to. She needed him and he needed her, which also, especially after seeing the kind of the trials and tribulations of their relationship had over the course of the war, because they both had gone through this whole thing thinking, we can get this stupid war to be over, we'll figure out our relationship and it'll be okay. The war ends and everything falls apart. So when she loses her will to live, it makes way more sense now. I'm like, yeah, I can see where that would, because she'd been just go, fight, go, go for years. And everything she worked for completely fell apart. From the government to her friends to her husband, everything fell apart. It's enough to take it out of anybody.
That's the first time I've actually thought of it in those terms.
Yeah, she had nothing to fall back on. What's she gonna do? Like shack up with 3PO? I mean, come on.
Right.
Like there's like anyone she ever cared for either betrayed her or died. Everybody. Like that one cat. I forget his name. The bank guy.
Oh yeah.
Guy's a fucking piece of shit. I didn't know this was going to happen. Well, what did you think was going to happen, dummy? Sorry, I went Chris Titus there for a second. Okay, you ever watch Chris Titus? He has his inner dumb guy voice. So I'm presuming we're going to get into spoilers.
Yeah, I mean it's a show that's been on, but I mean, I wanted to start off with why. So hopefully, if somebody happened to see that, they could go, what, that makes a lot of sense.
The short version is that I pushed it away because I didn't like the animation style. It was an incomplete series. The animation style grows on you, like you just get used to it, like anything else, because it's a style, it's a choice, and it makes characters more recognizable as well. It helps quite a bit, and it truly because it is a complete series now, it made sense. But after the fact, I think that anyone who is less than satisfied with their prequels owes it to themselves to watch this, because just like at the beginning of the show, I was talking about how I was in this depression and I felt like I had a weight lifted off my shoulders. Same thing happened when I watched Clone Wars, in the sense that I can now look at the entire Star Wars universe with a much brighter eye and a broader heart, because Lucas is not responsible for this. The guys that produced this show, like Filoni, they did this. And much in the same way that the second season of Mandalorian, without spoiling anything, you can tell the people at the helm here really get it. And this is going to be a controversial statement, but if you look at what they did with the post-Disney Clone Wars, particularly the last season, which they didn't have to make. They didn't have to. They did. And they took the reins off of them, and they got to go crazy deep without being obtuse. And you know who was in charge of Lucasfilm when they did that? Kathleen Kennedy was in charge. She greenlit that shit. Okay?
Yeah.
Say what you want about her, but if you look at the overall arcing story that kind of the Skywalker saga is at the center, and how the Clone Wars expands out beyond that, even though those characters are involved, and the information and the precedent it sets for shows like Rebels, for The Mandalorian, for the future movies we're going to get, for things like Solo, which I can't wait to watch that again because that's going to be way better, having watched the Clone Wars. Everything fits together. And I feel like they had a plan, and that really the Clone Wars was at the center of it. It just took a lot longer to make because it's an animated show. And I think that if people had been able to see the ending of Clone Wars Series 7 before Solo had come out, I'm telling you, I think that all the missing goodwill for Star Wars, you can get it back.
Now look, this is
Clone Wars.
And this is it's kind of funny we're talking about this part of it before we get into like Clone Wars specific stuff, more general, because in a lot of ways, what I was kind of hoping is that you may not agree with me about, my appreciation for The Last Jedi, but at least now you can understand it a little bit more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I will say that again, if you pull back, Mando definitely. Mando kind of is showing us here's what else we can do, because what I'm getting at is you pull back and look at everything as a whole. There are people that really don't like Return of the Jedi. I never understood that. I've never understood that. And Last Jedi, I'll put it this way: if you want me, if I were to go really nitpicky, I would say just take what you did in the current version of Rise of Skywalker, bust that shit up into 2 movies and expand upon the ideas there. Because I don't have one single argument with any idea in there for the most part. There are things I would like to have been explained. What I mean is, if it's there, it makes some sense. It works. It does what it has to do. The movie was good, but it was all like super rushed in terms of like, I think that they have fleshed out everything that they were trying to say, it would have made more sense to everybody. And again, having seen the Clone Wars, like everything in there, even the questionable stuff, you could point back and say, nah, they kind of did that before. It makes sense that they had this technology and all this other crap.
Well, one of the things oh, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
But what I'm getting at is, if you were to expand upon those ideas and have a much longer version of that film, or cut it into 2 films to where it takes its own self-contained ideas and they make more sense, Last Jedi is fine. And one could argue that you can take an entire plot out of Last Jedi, being the casino crap. Just take that completely out. All right. Now you have all this real estate to tell parts of Rise of Skywalker better. Okay. Right. That's the only major thing I would say, because I don't mind that so much. It just doesn't seem like it has a point there. Last Jedi is definitely a good film. It's well made, and I think that it took risks where risks didn't need to be taken, but it's a risk. That's the whole definition of a freaking risk. And although there are things that I wouldn't have done the way it was done, it's already there. It's fine. We have so much other Star Wars that does it exactly the way you want it done, if that's the kind of purist that you are, they're fine. They're all fine. You can be like, but then you've got like, and again, just using Clone Wars as an example, we've got roughly, what is it, 14 or 16 hours or something? No, more than that. Way more than that.
You mean Clone Wars?
Yeah. So you have 7 seasons. We'll say an average of 18 episodes and an average of 25 minutes per episode. So 25 times 18. I'm going to get the calculator out. Fuck this. I'm doing it.
I'll say this. I think one of the things about the reason I brought up Last Jedi, because that's a sword subject for a lot of people. But one of the things that people, and this
53 hours, by the way.
53 hours. Wow.
53 hours, roughly.
Wow. Oh, Bucho did the full math there. But here's the thing. It's, from my standpoint, I looked at it as, because I'd watched the Clone Wars. I'd played Battlefront 2 and saw the little the one Luke level where he describes what he's been doing since Return of the Jedi, which he's going and
I love that campaign.
He's looking for artifacts. He's looking for the beginnings of the Jedi, and it's almost like in a weird kind of way when he's sitting there explaining the legacy of the Jedi is failure, and he's like, "Didn't you see the Clone Wars?" That's almost like what he's talking to Rey. He's like, you see everything that they did wrong, and they took this idea that might have been good and they twisted it, and because of dogmatic views and all that kind of stuff, they ruined a good thing, and they made their greatest enemy themselves. They made him. So that's one of the things that I loved about it. Sorry. What?
Ucho, if you need to catch a playthrough of Battlefront 2, you can do so on my YouTube channel, grindheadjim.com/YouTube. There's a full playthrough of that campaign.
But see, in fact, I think I did on my old channel. But anyway, my old channel's gone.
Mine's better. No, just kidding.
Yes, it probably is most likely yes. Yes.
So, someone asked me to describe my playthrough in as succinct a way as possible. And I think I sent you the clip one time. There's the one level where you're taking over, it looks like Endor, but it's not. And it's a tower, and they've got one ATST.
Yeah.
And you've got a very small squad, and you've got to essentially go in, get all the rebels, and then take out the walker, because you can't get the walker while you're out in the middle of nowhere. There's one part where my first playthrough, I almost had him. He was down to that much health. And then he turned and started shooting directly at me. He's this far from me. And I'm like, this is it. I'm like, ah! I went, fuck. And that's the whole campaign to me, because it's a really, really good, it's a cool story, but it's really depressing. It's really depressing.
Yeah.
And you see it from the Empire side of things. Kind of like what Mando season 2 does. You get to see what happens to an empire when things are going haywire.
I think that's funny when you brought up Mando. I feel like in a lot of ways, okay, you can argue that the Clone Wars was, what is it, Bondo? When you're fixing a car? They fixed the prequels,
everything
in the prequel era with Bondo, with the Clone Wars. Mandalorian is trying to. It's like, okay, how have we screwed up in the last 7 years? Let's see. Okay.
What did people think they were getting and they didn't get? Well, there's this one character. Let's plop him in there.
To me, it's one of the things that somebody said. I don't know if it was on Twitter. I don't know where it was, but basically saying that Mayfeld's character was more it was just more efficient and a better way to tell what happens to somebody who's in the Empire than what they were trying to do with Finn and then abandoned for some reason, for whatever reason. And so that's a really weird one.
Yeah, I feel like, honestly,
Oh, and Fallen Order's good too, by the way.
I haven't played that yet. I have it because of Game Pass. I have it because of Game Pass, and I just haven't touched it.
You'll like it.
Yeah. I just, the thing is, like, I can't play it on my PC. I have to play it. Well, actually, I have the Xbox and my capture card. I can play it here. I should just stop being lazy and play it.
You can do so.
Yeah, I can. I will eventually. That's why, because downloading it will take like 4 days.
Oh,
that's why. So, I feel like, and this is, it's a moneymaker for Disney if they do. They could give the new trilogy, well, the sequel trilogy, I should say, the same treatment easily. They could just do episodes, because there's a lot of time passes between each one. Yeah, all this stuff you could do, and you could do the same thing they do with the last 2 seasons of Clone Wars, which is have stories that are like interweaving to a certain degree that expands everything, and kind of like you could do probably 4 seasons on just everything Palpatine was doing from Jedi all the way.
Oh yeah,
leading up to the opening scenes of Skywalker. And why not? There's plenty of people that can do a great Ian McDermott impression out there.
Now again, one of the things that I think you know about me, I know Bucho knows this. The thing about me is, I just want new stuff now. You've done the thing. Step away, and that's what I'm really excited about, this whole High Republic thing, where it takes place 200 years before Phantom Menace. So we're getting an era we've never seen before, at least in canon.
Right.
And that could be a thing. That could be really, really fun. I don't know. The Mandalorian, the one thing that I will say that scares me a little bit is I talked about this many times with Bucho too. I hate this. I hate a show doing this, going, "Hey, remember when this happened?" And we're doing the thing.
Yeah, they're doing the hacky stand-up comic thing.
Yeah, I hate that. And Mandalorian came close.
Real close,
but still made it work in the story, which is how you do nostalgia properly.
Exactly,
you make it matter.
So if I had to venture a guess, knowing the way that what's producer director Jon Favreau. Favreau, I think that Iron Man and his involvement with the Marvel Universe has really upped his confidence as a writer. Like, I can pull this off.
Oh yeah.
Like, I can pull off all this stuff, and I've helped coach other directors through all this kind of stuff, and now I've been given the keys. And I imagine that anytime they hit a block, he goes, "What is the craziest thing we could do that no one would expect us to do in this moment?" Well, how about, beep, beep, beep. Okay. How do we make that work? What would that look like? Forget how we do it. Story-wise, what would that look like? Where does it go? What problems can we solve with it? What problems do we have to solve because of it? Right. And then they because I often wonder, like with Favreau, like, does he go, "Here's what I want the ending to be, and I need us to write our way into that. I need these two major things to happen that no one's going to believe we actually pull off. We have to make them believe we pulled it off." That now we now have, and you have 15 episodes or whatever to do this in. Go. How do we get here, and how do we get from here to here? And we got to bring Bill Burr back somehow, because he's amazing. And,
Yeah. It's weird too, though, because I love crafting a story. It's just an interesting thing, like, you look at the way that they've absolutely, obviously, that's what they did. They said, "This is where we want to go now. What are the steps that we need to take in 8 episodes to get there, to make that believable and to make it work?" Then that's why you get these episodes where it's like, not really. They didn't really get very far in this episode, but there's still one piece of information, right? But they don't. They spend anyway. I love
they
that.
brought back a bunch of characters from season 1 that I thought there was no reason to bring back, and they did it in a believable way that builds on the universe of these characters, and
was a great episode in their own right.
Yes.
Too.
Now, if you have not seen the second season of Mandalorian, mute or get the fuck out. I'm going to give you 10 seconds. All right?
Spoilers!
Right, because I can't say what I want to say.
Yeah.
I can't be coy anymore. So I'm just giving you a few more seconds here before I say it. All right. You still here? You left? All right, cool. You cannot... You could not have plotted this season and just said, oh, we're just going to drop Boba Fett in here. Oh, we're just going to just randomly drop Luke Skywalker in here. You've got to have the means to do this. And you don't get to a Boba Fett, even a mini series, if that's all it is, or if it is the season 3 of Mandalorian, which the longer I think about it, the more I'm thinking we're going to be away from Mando for a while as a main character. And you can't do that without wrapping up a lot of stuff and establishing a universe for him. Because if we're going to be away from him for over a year, for us, it's going to be 2 years before we see him again as the main character, probably. You establish this great bed of characters and this wonderful universe for him to dope around in, that when you do finally come back around to him and dope around in, that's right. Exactly. Yeah. You come back to him, and then presumably the end of that 4th season would be what's the child's name? Grogu. Yeah. I mean, he would come back at the end of that season, right? And then you get Luke again, and then hopefully by then they come to their senses and call up Sebastian Stan. Dang it.
I don't understand why they didn't do that in the first place. But...
Oh, because I've looked at all the different things and like, God, as he looks, I didn't see it until someone said it. And then I'm like, fuck, he looks a lot like Mark Hamill. Like he's perfect. And they need to do a whole series about him.
I'm just going to say that coming soon on the channel, on the YouTube channel, I've done a Star Wars, this is where I think things are heading kind of thing.
Okay.
And so I'm just going to briefly this is what I think. So you've got the Rangers of the New Republic. You've got Ahsoka. You've got the Book of Boba Fett. And you've got Mandalorian Season 3. What?
Yeah. I'm just Ahsoka. I'm going to talk a lot about Ahsoka here in a minute.
Okay. So what I think, they've said that those are all going to interconnect, i.e. sort of like the Marvel comics of old, where it's like you're reading, you pick up one comic, you're like, oh, this looks good, and you read it, and 15 times in the episode is like, see, whatever comic you don't have on your shelf, number 26. Right. And then if you want to know more about this, do this. It was the most annoying thing ever, as somebody who had a limited amount of money to buy comics, to have to... You're telling me I got to buy 70 other comics to understand this story? That's crap.
But what I love is that one of the best things about being an adult in the internet age is that now I can go read all those comics and I can be like, oop, I'm going to go read that right now. And I can go do that.
And what's even better now, with Disney Plus, it's all going to be in one place.
Right. And I think that Favreau knowingly understood this, and certainly Fellini, is it Fellini? Is that the last name?
Filoni.
I'll remember it now. Because that's how I'm going to just term like the way he does it. It's Filoni. Like that's what he's doing. I think that they're both baloney. I think that they were.
May sound dirty. But...
it's a dick joke. But I feel like they were really conscious of that fact. They're like, look, there's nothing that we can't reference here, because if they really want to know, they can go. If they're watching this, which they have to have this thing to be watching the show, they have the means. We don't have to hold their hand or knock them over the head with it. We can
just be a name drop. Yeah.
Like instead of doing the full blown elbow, they're just kind of going. They're just flapping the wing a little bit, just a little bit.
To me, that's what I always loved about the Clone Wars, was that they would reference things, but it would
Not
literally
even
be
knowledge that
like
they referenced it.
just the way that, I mean, it's kind of like the way Obi-Wan talks about the Clone Wars in New Hope. You know, you fought in the Clone Wars? Oh yeah, I was a Jedi the same as your father. And that's it, pretty much. I mean, you really don't get much, but it's just enough to get your brain going, holy shit, what is all that? And then...
now we have it.
Yeah, and now we have it, which, you know, we can always argue that sometimes the stuff in your head, the way you imagine something may be... Right. It could be better or worse than what you end up getting, but you gotta admit...
Like, the biggest thing for me... that I kept coming back to, and I was like, man, I hope that I'm not remembering this wrong. But like, characters were meeting up and doing things and interacting with each other in a way that I'm like, how does this work in the context of episode 3, dude? Like, how? And then I messaged you as I'm watching episode 3, and I'm like, wait a minute. That Anakin, he really didn't meet Grievous ever, did he? No. I'm like, that's Filoni baloney. You know, like you did it. Like you pulled it off. Because, and the thing is, like, you assume, if you only had watched the movies, that no one had met him before. But spoilers, in the Clone War, like, Kenobi and him fight multiple times. And he's clashed a lot with Ahsoka and everything else too. But then you go to watch the third episode 3, and it all plays. It's a little stilted, a little bit, but you get away. They get away with it. They totally get away with it because you know. Once they got past the first 2 seasons, they said, okay, we really need to memorize episode 3. To memorize every last word, every scene, every movement, every inflection. We got to be careful because as they were moving forward, like you could tell, not only because of what they were showing you, but what they weren't showing you and what they were careful to avoid, because they cover so much ground. I mean, you got to be some kind of master storyteller to resurrect freaking Darth Maul and make it work, make it believable, and have him have this whole arc to where he's essentially back to being who he was, and have it again work. And he's fuck. Darth Maul gets the Boba Fett treatment here, in that he's everything that character you knew it could be, and you always hoped you would see it, and then you get to see it. And then you know it's cool when his big brother is the Kurgan from Highlander. Yeah. There can be... I'm sorry. I hear his voice, Clancy Brown. I know who I'm dealing with. You're going to get a warm-hearted badass or a complete monster. And we got a complete monster, and it worked. And he was always kind of the Erstats Darth Maul, and he knew it from the beginning, and he was always frustrated, like, I'm never going to be as good as my brother. Like, nope, you never will be, because Darth Maul is fucking insane. It's amazing. Savage, yes. Yeah. But that character went just when I was getting tired of that character. Just when I was like, okay, I've seen enough of this. This guy's never going to progress. He's not good at what he does. He's a good brother, but you got to go. You're dead weight. Maul is being held back by you in every possible way. You're the muscle. He doesn't need you anymore. Oh, he's dead. Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Just the right time. He was just about to become like, okay, the Maul brothers, you know, I was getting tired of it. But I'm jumping around way too much.
It's okay.
So I want to talk a bit.
Sorry, before we get too far into it, it's something that I wanted to mention, and we kind of got away from it. But just for a second, I just want to say that if you didn't like Last Jedi or Rise of Skywalker or even Force Awakens, and you blamed Kathleen Kennedy, but then you like The Mandalorian or you like the Clone Wars or whatever, you have to credit Kathleen Kennedy. I'm sorry,
to balance it. Yeah.
You have to. You can't. you can't pick and choose when she's good and when she's bad.
Right.
You either she's there. She's been there the whole time. And look, I try to give Kathleen Kennedy a little bit more credit because if you look at her career, it's insane how many great movies she's made. Maybe she's not, it could be that maybe she's not the best head of a studio kind of thing. Yeah. Or I guess Lucasfilm is a studio, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what you consider Lucasfilm now.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about Asajj Ventress. Don't worry about that. We'll definitely talk about that.
Oh yeah. And then but at the same time, I still feel like in a lot of ways it was kind of like, to me, the sequel trilogy was the heads of Disney poking their heads in and going, you really need to do this, and you really need to do that, and you really need to do this. And Kathleen Kennedy's going, they're doing this thing. No. We need the Emperor back. But that doesn't make sense. He was killed. You figure it out. Okay, I guess we'll put it in Fortnite that he's coming back. You know what I mean?
Sure, right.
It felt like it just feels very studio involvement instead of creatives making decisions.
Yeah, I think that they were too scared. So I think the pendulum swung a little too far with Last Jedi, and they pulled back way too much with Rise. And again, as a whole, it works as well as it needs to.
To get to the credits.
It didn't have to be right. It did. There's a beginning, middle, and end. All the arcs get wrapped up. Maybe it's not the story you wanted to tell, but guess what? You didn't make the freaking movie. The royal you, not you personally,
right?
Obviously. But I will say this, and I will say this over and over and over again. Force Awakens, you can say whatever the hell you want about it. Fact of the matter is this: cinematically, for the average Star Wars fan, that is exactly the movie we needed at that time. It had to be what it was. And it set up a lot of interesting questions, and we didn't get the answers we wanted. I think we wanted Star Wars to turn into James Bond a little bit. We wanted just the Skywalker saga never to end somehow. And I think a lot of people had that expectation that it was just going to keep going. And Kennedy and Disney are like, fuck, we need this to work in 3 movies. And I think they locked themselves into that. They probably could have done it in 5 or 6 movies, honestly. Well, the story that they told in those 3 movies probably could have worked as 6 movies or something. If you gave yourself that breathing room, right?
Right.
And I think that more than anything else, having to do 3 movies and saying we're going to wrap this up in this amount of movies was the problem, because they introduced so many cool ideas in the first one, albeit in a package that we recognized and was comfortable. They could have drawn it out a lot more if they wanted to. And if they do decide to go back and flesh things out with a series or something, I think it's a good idea. We don't need this for a while. Like, it'll be another at least 4 years before we need that, quote unquote. I don't want this next year, damn it, or 2 years. Right. Like, we have so much cool stuff. We have enough coming. That's really cool. Especially with like the Kenobi series coming, which I'm way more excited for now. And I'll get into why. So I think they handicapped themselves too much with that decision alone. And
they wanted a new trio of characters.
Yeah.
And in doing that, they sidelined the original trilogy characters that for however many,
which I'm fine with.
Years. Yeah.
Which I'm fine with. I was always fine with that.
But see, a lot of people weren't. That was the whole thing. When they got rid of the Legends stuff, if you look at those Legends things, it's the continuing adventures of Luke, Han, and Leia. They didn't really move on to new characters. It was literally the continuing adventures. So
you can still do that, though.
Yeah, but the first thing Disney does is comes out and says, hey, all those Legends books and games and all those things you like, yeah, that's all gone now. Because it was all over the place and it didn't make any sense. But there were fans of it and they would say, well, what about, okay, so you're giving me a new trilogy. Uh-oh, did you freeze? I think you froze. But they're saying, I hope you're still there and you can hear me. But now you're going to give me a new trilogy, right? And people are like, okay, well, that's okay. I guess that's cool. And what do?
Right.
They sideline Luke until the last thing. He didn't even get to say a word in The Force Awakens. So those people that were already mad by getting rid of Legends, then you're saying, okay, and now we've got these new characters. Rey just suddenly has Force powers. What the hell is this? Even though I agree with, or I still, there are parts of the sequel trilogy that I really like. I finally get it. After seeing people's response and reactions to that final scene in Mandalorian season 2, I now get it. It's like, oh my God, this is what they wanted from the beginning. This was the promise that Lucasfilm didn't give them. This is what they wanted this whole time.
So
you know what I mean?
Let me ask you a question. I'm gonna drop this bomb on you. I'm gonna let you decide if you want to stay in the explosion or run like hell.
Okay.
What's the name of the actor that played Han Solo in Solo?
Aaron Alden. Ehrenreich? Is that his name?
Well, his name's Alden. Just take Alden. What's his face? Sebastian.
Dan.
And we'll recast Leia.
Millie Bobby Brown. Go ahead.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you. I forgot her name. So we take those three and we get a trilogy
and begin
or more.
Go today.
After Jedi. After Jedi. Yeah.
Just go now.
Tell that story between those two. Exactly. I mean,
I'd be on board.
Yeah, because say what you will, I love Solo, and I liked him in it. He brings a lot of honor to that character. I think that Sebastian, he's got the acting chops. He could do it if you give him the right script.
Yep.
He's got the look. It's convincing enough, and certainly Billy. I mean, come on, she actually has played Leia before.
No, what? Who has?
Her daughter.
Oh, right.
She played her. Technically.
Oh, but I was talking about the I know who you're talking about. I can't remember her name. Millie Bobby Brown. Millie Bobby Brown is Stranger Things.
I swore her name was Billy though, but Millie Bobby Brown, I can see that too.
Billy Lord.
She's too young.
That's her name.
Billy Ward. Yeah, so Billy. When you said Millie, I heard Billy, but I think Billy would be the more fan favorited choice just because it is Carrie Fisher's daughter. She's the right body type, and she's already in the Star Wars universe, and a little bit of makeup just to age her a little bit. Just a tiniest bit. The only reason I say do that is so that it's less jarring when you see her as her in the sequel trilogy. You see, you know what I'm saying? So you go nuts with the hair. You do whatever you can to distance her from how she looked in the sequel trilogy, just so there's not a confusion thing there.
Right.
And if someone says, "Oh, why would you use the same actor twice?" Dude, there was a guy that played 3 Jedi at the same time in the prequel trilogy. So bite me. But I think that
just in a let you know, I can't see chat for some reason. My chat is destroyed, and it may
I
be.
can see chat, but there's nothing there. That's me.
What was that?
That's me. That's electrical feedback.
Oh, okay.
Because the electricity in here is weird.
Okay.
If it starts to go, I'm just gonna have to.
Sounds like my video from last night.
Nah.
With fire. And...
No.
But no, I don't know. Just real quick, I think yesterday there was a lot of Twitch issues.
Mm-hmm.
That may be happening here because I can't see my bit rate, my chat, my hosting, all that
chat
stuff
still
is
works.
down.
Chat still works. Let me make sure the stream is still up, which I'm sure it is, but
no, it looks like the stream is still up. But it's still mine is just saying connecting chat, and it's just
I'm still in chat and I can see it. So if something comes up, I'll let you know.
Okay, because we're
good.
I don't know what's going on.
No, we're okay. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
You can't do anything about it. You can't do anything about it. It's fine. You're good. You're okay. It's fine. Now I have to power cycle my mixer.
We're gonna get it, guys. Everything's good.
All right. It'll probably happen again. Just letting you know. But I think in a world where you can pull off what they did with Mando, with Boba Fett and Luke Skywalker, and certainly with Ahsoka, which I have to rewatch now because of my appreciation for that character. You could absolutely go back and tell those stories post Return of the Jedi with those actors, set it like maybe 2 or 3, not more than 5 years after the events of Jedi, to give them room to tell the Mando story. And you could have some fun with it. I think that because we accepted Skywalker, for better or for worse, at the end of Mando, even given shaky special effects, which I still don't understand how that could look not as good as a freaking deepfake. I don't understand it.
Yeah, it's weird for sure.
But if we accept that and when there was such elation, I think people need to go back and rewatch Solo again. I really think that Last Jedi was what killed Solo, purely on its own.
Oh, for sure. Well, that and let's release it 2 weeks after Avengers.
That was stupid.
Yeah, it's really.
They should have released it in like late summer,
or Christmas, where it was supposed to go.
Right.
Yeah,
and would have given plenty of time to market it properly.
And it would have given people. Well, I mean, there's still people getting angry with Rian Johnson on Twitter for either 3 years later or whatever. That's another whole thing. But
yeah,
at least a year would have given most people enough time to cool off and go, you know what? Okay. And I don't know, let's release a trailer more than a month and a half before the movie comes out.
Right.
Get people excited about it.
And I mean, you could have had a really cool interview, like some really cool interviews where they do like a press junket with Harrison Ford and the guy that plays him now.
Mm-hmm.
Like just having like or have them at Celebration together on a panel and let that circulate the internet for a while.
Yeah.
Because Harrison Ford clearly was like, he's like, that I like that guy. Like he did say publicly, like he was totally cool with it. They could have cast a pile of dog shit. He'd have been okay. Because he's like, as long as I don't have to do it, but
yeah. Yeah.
but I
wanted
think
out.
He was the right actor to play the part then, and this new guy's the right actor to play the part now. He's got just enough of that vibe, and it works. So I want to see those characters again. I want to see him young and virile again. The only way we're going to get away with that is with new actors. Already got a good Han. Billy could come in and play Leia if you want to. You can get freaking shaved head lady if you want. I don't care. Whatever.
There's a shot.
Frankly, that actor gets too much work, in my opinion. Stranger Things. Yeah, she gets too much work, and she's too hot right now. No. I think Billy deserves a chance to play her mom. I'm just saying, she's a good actor.
Oh, I think that would be fine. That's where I thought you were going with it, is because there's that one image of her where they basically put her face on Carrie Fisher's body, and it was I
have a better idea for her.
I was like, holy crap, she really does.
I have a better idea for her. Cast her
Admiral Akbar.
Good choice. Padme. Cast her as Padme. You could have. She's still young enough. You could play. Yeah, you could cast her because there's a lot of stuff in between episode 1 and 2 that they could explore, just for funsies.
Yeah.
And I legitimately would like to see Anakin's growth in between 1 and 2. And
there's a comic series that does that, but yeah,
I don't care.
Totally agree.
I've never liked Star Wars and comic books ever. I've read them I don't think it translates properly. It doesn't work for me. I think there's too much lost. I think there's some cool artwork out there. I'm sure the stories are great. I've read some of them. That's really cool, but it takes me out of it. For some reason, it takes me out of it.
I'm just going to restart my PC here.
Why don't you restart your PC? And while you're at it, make sure you restart your PC.
Yes.
I read some of the Star Wars comics when I was a kid. I read the movie adaptations. I had the graphic novel for Return of the Jedi, which was actually pretty good. But I still wanted to see the movie. You know, I still wanted to see it in motion. And I think that the animated series, all of them, are a good. You get the economy of it being animated because it's easier to do because you have assets you can recycle and all this fun stuff. So the cost is much more effective. You have the freedom that a comic book allows because you can do anything you want, anything. But you still get that. You get to be cinematic with it, and you get to have those cool shots. And you get to have the.
You locked up again. He said you have those cool, and then suspense. There's so much suspense. Jim! Damn it, Jim, I'm a streamer, not a doctor. I don't know what I'm saying. Wow. Uh-oh, there's me. Why am I? Hi. He's reconnecting. There he is.
Yes. Should be a bit better now.
All right. I think the internet's just taking a crap today.
Well, mine always does on some level. So I'm doing is I'm using my, and I'm not sure how this works on this computer, but it does apparently work where I have two internet connections going. So I've got my Wi-Fi, but I'm also using my phone as a hotspot, and I'm combining them somehow. I don't know how Windows actually does that, but it's working apparently. I'm using next to no data on the phone right now as I'm watching it, but if it helps stabilize it, I don't give a frick. Anyway, so long as it works,
my chat still doesn't work.
Chat is not stop connecting for me as well. So chat, if you can hear us, I apologize deeply that we won't be able to interact with you.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the chat there.
If you have a pressing question,
you know what?
Go over to Order 42 Show on Twitter and throw a comment under the latest tweet, and we'll try to get to that. Or you can @ me at Grindhead Jim, and I have a live Twitter feed, and I'll be happy to answer your questions there as well. Either way, we'll get to you. Sorry, the chat's being a B.
Yeah.
It's a pain in the A. I don't have a D one. Never mind. I'll stop.
There you go.
So, let's just jump into Ahsoka.
Yes,
one of the things that kind of one of the minor reasons I was kind of like, I don't really care, because I did see like 1 or 2 episodes and the movie years ago, and I'm like, I don't care about this orange kid. I just don't give a flying frog about this kid at all. She's annoying, and I don't see how they can possibly have an arc with this kid in it that's going to lead me to episode 3 and believe that she existed ever. But in a post Mandalorian world, and I think honestly Mandalorian was a big thing, not just because I was elated and wanted to watch more Star Wars, but she shows up in there like, well, okay, clearly something cool has happened to this character, and there's enough love for this character that I'm missing something. And one of my best friends loves this show so much he had a whole podcast about the fucking thing. So maybe I should give it a shot. Finally, I have time, I have motivation. Let's just, I had opportunity, motive, and
right.
Let's kill this pig. So right from the get-go, And I remember, because in the chronological order, you go through like 2 or 3 episodes and then you watch the movie,
Right.
which helped the movie enough. But I remember going, man, this kid still annoys me. So, but like I said to you later, like that's what kids that age are supposed to be. They're supposed to be annoying. And I can, and then again, and they say it over and over again throughout the series. There's a reason they paired her with Anakin, because if there's anyone who could understand her impulses, it was him from the get-go. And he didn't fully see it at first. Even though he accepted her, he didn't get it. Obi-Wan got it right away. He's like, oh yeah, you're gonna be fine. This is good. And I think Obi-Wan to a certain degree is like, maybe it'll teach him that he's being a jerk some of the time.
Yeah.
And before I go too deep, man, Obi-Wan. Love Obi-Wan start to finish in that freaking series, man.
Yeah.
Love
Shout
him.
out to James Arnold Taylor. He kills it. And he's also the voice of Plo Koon, by the way.
Which is one of my favorite characters. Yeah. And Order 66 in episode 3, when you see him, you have no idea who that guy is otherwise. He's never anywhere else in the series. And then I knew it was coming, and I was just like, oh man, you know, it was bad. Oh man, lots of tears during episode 3, man. Even the no, again, not because of the delivery of the line, which is still ridiculous, but just you realize that moment. But when I first saw it in theaters, I cried then too. I understood it then, but it's way deeper now, you know?
Yeah.
Because that's his moment, you know, because he just like Padme, everything he'd worked for, gone. Everything. And the stakes are even higher now because, by then, hey, he lost his apprentice, which is like his little sister, lost his wife. And then as far as he knew, his kids were dead. His kid is dead. He betrayed his brother. His order. Everything. See, and in that moment, I think that was the last moment that he allowed himself that little tiny bit of light, where he was just like, well, if Padme's okay, I can fix everything else. I'm a powerful enough being. I can fix everything else. Oh, I can get all this stuff back. As long as she's okay, I can kill this wrinkly piece of shit. Like, it's all fixable. Like, I've made horrible mistakes, but I can fix it. 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 He's an engineer. He's a mechanic. I can fix it. I can fix it. I can fix it. But as soon as he thought his wife and his kid are dead, that moment, that is when he becomes Darth Vader. That's the moment. Because then he's like, there's nothing for Anakin Skywalker to live for. He loses the will to live and dies, and all that's left is Darth Vader. Fix the prequels for you guys right there.
That's, it's funny because they said that, of course, when he calls him Darth Vader, that's when Anakin Skywalker, because you're absolutely, spot on, because he's standing on that railing, looking at the lava, contemplating life, and he's bawling. He's crying. Sith wouldn't cry. He's still Anakin at that point. And he's forged in that lava and then reborn as Darth Vader. Wow. That just hit a little, wow. That kind of gave me chills thinking about that.
Yeah, if you stop and really
thinking about it,
mm-hmm.
and trying
because you said yourself, you were living vicariously through my experience. Like, this is what I'm here for, is to like give you like, here's where I'm at as a fan going into this, and so like I never took any issue with the way Kenobi was played in the prequels at all. I always thought Ewan McGregor was perfect. I cannot wait to see what he does moving forward. And given all the backstory I have for Anakin now, I'm really on board with him getting in that suit. Really on board with it. If you'd have told me, because remember my initial reaction was like, what? Why? Now I'm okay with it. Yeah. Because you know what? I it's like I don't know if I said it to you out loud or what, but I hope he's watched the Clone Wars over and over and over again, preparing. And I know that there's a lot of things that he wanted to do as an actor that the director he got kind of shot him down with George Lucas. And
definitely be interesting.
I hope they can convince Natalie Portman to come back for some flashbacks. Because she, again, you give her a good script, she's going to come back. And I think that's one of the biggest opportunities, is that you can have some flashbacks of things we haven't seen before. And they're going to do that. They're going to de-age them both. And if you take someone and de-age them like 10 years, it works okay. Like,
yeah, that
I'll believe in a heartbeat. So now you can take Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker, and you can take Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi, and you can de-age them, and we can get some more Clone Wars in a way too. So we get, if they're smart, they're going to play it that way, a little bit of both, because there's so much ground you can cover with that series. And the Clone Wars did those characters such a service, and with the folks that are in charge now, I think Hayden Christensen is finally going to get his chance to really show us what he can do. He's not a piece of cardboard. He never was. He just had a shitty director. Sorry, George. You're a shit director when it comes to actors.
Yeah.
When it comes to he has no patience for him.
That's the thing. Yeah. And that's the thing that's... The dude is amazing with vision and with world building, all of that stuff. Dialogue is not a strong suit.
Story he's good with. It's dialogue he's always sucked at. That's why like a Larry Kasdan is really effective. Yep. That's why J.J. Abrams is really effective. Like, I think that J.J. Abrams has the opposite problem that Lucas does. They both are very good at visuals. They're both very good at editing, for example. But when you get into... So, like, Abrams is better at dialogue. Not as good as an overarching story per se, but he's pretty good. Dialogue is his strong suit. Showing character development is his strong suit. Whereas Lucas is better at pulling back and saying, how is this going to look? Like, he's just that's more his thing.
You know what it is? It's like, this is how I had described, I don't know if it was on one of these streams, if it was on a YouTube, I don't know. Everything's blending together. It's all
right.
But to me, The Mandalorian season 2 was somebody had a box of action figures, right? And they tripped. And they went and they looked at what fell out of the box and went, that's episode 2. That's episode 3.
Did you watch the making of?
Yes.
Mandalorian? Where
Rodriguez
actually did use action figures.
But see, that's the weird thing, is I said that like a long time ago. Because that's to me how it felt. It felt very, oh man, we're using stuff that we never thought would really go together, but they really can work together, right? Mm-hmm. And then you've got Favreau and Filoni and whoever else was writing all of these episodes, along with the directors, crafting them very, very carefully. J.J. Abrams is great at spilling the box out and going, oh, this would be cool. Mm-hmm. But then maybe not the best at wrapping things up or telling a complete thing. That's why it's like, you look at some of the stuff that he's been involved with, he creates it. He doesn't finish it. He doesn't, you know what I mean? He's there at the beginning when it's like, oh man, like, wouldn't it be cool if there was a smoke monster in the woods? And you're like,
so
but what is it? We don't know.
You know what I would have loved to? You know what I would have loved to have seen? And there's no way that they were going to have time to do it at the time. But if you took the writing team that did the Captain America sequel, Captain America from the beginning. They did all 3 Captain America films, and they did all the Avengers films after Ultron. 2 guys wrote all those films, Civil War, all of it. And if you put them on Rise of Skywalker, that would have been fun. I want that writing team for everything. And the Russo brothers can do no wrong, in my opinion. They need to do a Star Wars. They need to get that writing team and those 2 directors. Now go do Star Wars. But we're never going to get that. So, yeah, well, that's not true. I mean, we could, same company. I mean, I keep forgetting that.
Well, yeah, but see, now they've made some deals with Netflix, so it feels like they must have had some weird contract with Disney and said, we're going to make so many of these, and then once that's done, we're going off and doing our own thing. Because now they're doing Extraction. They did Extraction, with Hemsworth, and then they're doing some other show with them. Some other movie.
And to be fair, I think after you're that deep in the trenches, you need a palate cleanser. And I think that Disney can appreciate that. Sure. You look at all the other filmmakers they have involved in Star Wars and Marvel now. And I think they've gotten much better at letting them kind of rotate and giving them years to develop stuff. Right. Because Disney's in a much better place than they were 10 years ago. 10 years ago with Star Wars, almost 10 years. Well, no, they've only had Star Wars for like 7 years. 13, 6 years. Yeah, so like they haven't had it that long. So think of how everything they've accomplished in that time. I give them a lot more credit. And now with Disney Plus being where it's at, where a year and a half ago, everyone's like, this is not going to work. Do they have anything? Now it's like, I want this all the time. Like, I don't mind having all these services. I don't even care because there's something for me on all of them. I'm happy. I'm fine. I'm good. And they still cost less than a cable subscription. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
And I have that with Sling. If I really want to watch live TV for like $25 a month I spend, I can watch TV whenever I want. I don't worry about it. So I will never pay for regular cable TV again. And I within 5 years, every major distributor of this stuff is going to go online in some way, shape, or form. I mean, at this point, even CBS has gotten smart, where they have CBS Plus, which includes AMC, IFC, and some others, and Shudder, I think, is included as well. One of those, because there's 2 of them that are doing that now.
That's going away, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, they have AMC Plus and CBS, CBS Plus. The CBS Plus on Amazon, you get like 3 or 4 different channels for one price. And then you have AMC Plus, which has all their stuff that falls under their thing. And that's like $8 for each of those. So you're getting like 6 channels for $15. You're getting everything. It's totally worth it. And and if I don't want something, I can just cancel it for 1 month and put it right back. And those are the sounds it makes when it happens too.
Yeah.
But
I know.
But my point is, like, Disney is in a place where they finished the Clone Wars. They've integrated all this other stuff that before they had to rely on network partners and all this stuff. And they don't have to do it. They don't have to deal with anybody else. They can go as nuts as they want to. They can give someone like Jon Favreau the keys and say, do whatever the fuck you want. We trust you.
Yeah.
And with 1 episode of a 2-season series,
you've totally redeemed yourself.
Pretty much. He's become the poster boy for Disney, for Star Wars. When I saw Iron Man 12 years ago, I was like, I don't know where this is going to lead, but I hope that they capitalize on this. And fuck me if they didn't. Like because the Disney acquisition occurred while Iron Man was in production, as I recall. It was like midway through, and Marvel was still on their own for that particular film. But after that, then they got the budgets and all this stuff, and they were able to run with it.
Contracts.
Right. And
that was important.
And they were able to then pull stuff in. Now with the Fox acquisition, yeah, there are some concerns, obviously, like a monopoly and all this stuff. I understand where you're coming from with that, but there's plenty of other stuff in the world that people can create. If you're that worried about like intellectual property, go write something original and shut up. Like, it's okay that they have Marvel. It's okay that they have Star Wars. They got the mouse. They got everything else. Are they making insane amounts of money? Absolutely. You're just mad because you didn't have the capital to think of it first. So not you, but the person, like someone has to own these characters. And at least it's a company that has the muscle and the freedom to let these things do what we've always thought since we were children that they could do. And if you're so worried, like Netflix makes pretty darn good original material. You know, Warner Brothers is getting better at it as time goes on. Like they're learning from their mistakes and they're taking some chances, the right kinds of chances with the DC stuff. You know, they've got other properties that are really good. Yeah, I feel like we have more opportunities than we ever had for entertainment. My point is, though, that now Disney's at a place where they've weathered the storm. They're in the eye, and they've got to prove themselves on the back end of that storm with a lot of the promises they've made that seem a lot less risky now than they would have a year ago. You know, on the heels of Mandalorian season 2 ending, they said, oh, by the way, you're going to get that Boba series that we've been teasing. We want to do something with Boba Fett, but we set it up in a way that it makes sense now. And we have your goodwill, and we have your money, so we're going to run with it. And I was like, cool, take all my money. And the Obi-Wan, Vader series. Let's call it what it is. It's an Obi-Wan Vader series. And if you'd have told me a year ago we were going to get that, I'd be like, I don't know how you're going to do that and have it work. But between the context of seeing that they've got like that centralized Jon Favreau kind of vibe going, and knowing that Filoni from the beginning has been a very well-regarded producer, like I always knew that. But seeing what he did with The Mandalorian in a space where I didn't have to get used to an animation style. I didn't have to go like, do I really want to go in the prequel universe? Like, fuck, dude. Like, seeing what he's capable of in a space where I'm already comfortable.
Yeah.
You know, and knowing that those two guys are the two main big bads. And they're saying, well, we're going to get teams together to do Boba Fett. I'm in. We're going to team together to do Obi-Wan. Okay. And Ewan McGregor's back. Oh, fuck, I'm in. Like, I'm totally in. And it gives me that much more slack to give them, when you got Waikiki doing freaking Star Wars. I'm like, please, look what he did with Thor. Like, he took Thor and just made it big again. I think they tried too hard to ground Thor those first two movies. It was too I don't want to say accessible. Yeah.
Just have fun with it.
But to be fair, at that time when those films were made, movie-going audiences weren't ready for a Guardians of the Galaxy yet. They weren't ready for a Doctor Strange. And freaking Kevin Feige knew that. He's like, I want to bring Thor and I have to introduce him, but how do we do this? First movie was perfectly fine for what it was. It did exactly what you did to do. The second movie was
Kenneth Branagh to direct.
Yes.
Shakespeare.
Yes. It was perfect.
We'll have Anthony Hopkins, and I mean,
it really is. What an amazing.
Seriously, when you think about that, and you think about Kevin Feige and his vision. It's crazy what he's done.
And now we're going to get Fantastic Four. That's confirmed. It's in production.
Oh, yeah.
And somewhere on this next round of stuff, we're going to get a lot of mutant references. They're coming. And all I want to know is, who's Wolverine, man? Just tell me, cast somebody small. I mean, in stature. He's got to be short.
5'7".
Yeah. Just slightly shorter than me. And I'll be fine if he just does an impression of the voice from the video games, from the Marvel. Let's go, bub. I'm good. I'm good with that. Combine him with just take my money, dude. Like, I can't wait to see a proper X-Men film, dude. Cannot wait. Boy, we're getting off track here.
No, not really. It's so funny because I think in a lot of ways, if you're a fan of Star Wars and you've seen what they did with The Mandalorian and you were like, yes, I love it. How can you be that upset about Disney right now? Like right now, in where they are right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see how you can be mad or angry or, oh, Disney did this and Disney did that. It's like, you've been watching what they've been doing? They've done nothing recently to warrant that kind of hate.
Ire, yeah.
Because, I mean, like, sure, Rise of Skywalker for me was a complete crap. And, I mean, just everything was like, what? Somehow the Emperor's returned. And you're like, well, why, though? Because then the Chosen One, and now he's back. Then it doesn't matter. Then what? Why? I get all that. But it was all because they said, we just spent $4 billion. We got to make this money back quick. We've got investors. We've got this. We've got that. They did that. They hurried everything into production. They didn't think it through. That's what we got.
And now they can relax. The blood pressure's gone down. Now let's have fun.
Yeah, let's just slow things down.
Yep.
Let's think this through.
Yep.
Who do we have on staff that's great? Oh, Dave Filoni. Okay. Do you got anybody else at Disney that may have proven themselves in the last, I don't know, 12 years?
There's that Favreau guy. We haven't given him a lot of work, and he's been really good behind the scenes, and he's got Kevin Feige's stamp. Let's give him a shot. What do you got?
It's so funny. It's so funny. Between Mandalorian Season 1, the end of Season 1, and then Season 2 production, what happened? Kevin Feige visited Lucasfilm, was on StarWars.com on their on the Star Wars show doing an interview, and it's like, why is Kevin Feige there? And wouldn't you know it, all of a sudden we have 4 shows that are in production or in pre-production that are going to interconnect. What are the? I mean, it's.
I wonder whose advice they got to do that.
Yeah, you would be a communist if you thought that there was any connection there. You know, I don't think take off the conspiracy theory hats and the. That's what happened. Feige came in and said, you know what I would do? And they probably said, we probably ought to listen to this guy. He's made us a lot of money recently. And that's what's happened.
He's made money and relatively low amounts of negative feedback.
Yep.
Relatively low amounts. There's been a few things that people are complaining about in the Marvel series, by comparison.
Yeah. You telling me the rat was the only reason why Ant-Man came back? That's like, really, that's your problem? Yeah. Holy crap. But go ahead.
So it just like, we're in a good spot. And I have to say that I already felt that way. But then going back and watching the Clone Wars, seeing where Filoni came from, seeing what he can do, I'm like, oh man, I can't wait. And don't put this guy in charge of a movie. Keep him in episodic shows. That's where he's good.
At least not yet.
No, I can
just forever. You're working on the Disney Plus shows. That's it.
And by the way, we're actually working on cloning technology. We're going to get a new Kevin Feige and a new Dave Filoni. We want detailed files on your childhoods so that we can make them the same people forever. Anyway, so Ahsoka. Ahsoka, I was, like I said, I was really annoyed by her character initially, and it made sense in the context of what. Okay, chat's still not working. Crap.
Yeah,
okay.
I just checked it too.
Yeah. So, but it did not take long, because you'd warned me, like, it takes a couple seasons for it to ramp up, and that was more important for me in Clone Wars than it is with Rebels. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to have anything to care about for a while, and I know this going in. And it was originally a Disney XG or whatever it is show.
Yeah, XD
original, which is their kids channel. So I knew going in, right? Like I understood. Like I'm not gonna like this right away, but it'll be something I'll have some fun with. Plus, I just hated Star Wars, so it was fine. And one of the things that I guess I underestimated was how much characterization they were able to squeeze out of the clones.
Yes.
And they did such a good job of that. And I won't spoil anything, but I'm gonna. Rex, and Rebel. That's on. It was cool. And Commander Cody, like you get to know all these characters, and then they somehow were able to integrate these guys. Because the first, when I saw the episode with what was then Domino Squad with 99 5s and all this stuff.
Yep.
I was like, that's just a really cool story. Like, I mean, I can't wait. I hope that those characters go on, and then you see them like throughout the whole series. You follow up with them, you see them live, you see them die. And it was from the outset, it was that thing of like, well, how do you humanize these guys that look exactly the same? But then I had to fall back, and I reminded myself of something I say every single day. If you buy a car or a computer with the exact same specs as the next guy, as soon as you make one turn different than the other person, that car is different forever. That computer is different forever. It's the same thing with a clone. They're living different lives from different perspectives. And of course, they're going to develop personalities. And of course, they're going to have names, and they're going to have their ways of doing things. And they explored that brilliantly through the whole thing. And you got to know, these commanding officers and how they think and the command structures. And I forget the commander's name that worked most closely with Kenobi and Anakin. Mustache guy. Loved him.
Isn't that Yularen?
I think so. He was introduced in the film, and then they just kept moving along with him, because that was when they first met, basically.
I'm pretty sure, and that ends up being the guy on the Death Star in A New Hope. He's sitting there. He's older. Yeah. Anyway, yes.
And I, when they finally bring in Tarkin, I'm like, okay. And for a brief moment, I like Tarkin. A brief, like we're talking less than 10 minutes of the series, I like him. Because I liked that. I liked that he was coming around and like giving, his version of praise to people, and then he turns right around to cars, real life cars, not the cars in the movie, sir. I'm just saying. Yeah.
No,
I get it. Just want to be clear to anyone, watching later. I've never seen that. I've never seen those Pixar films, by the way. Don't want to. Like, there's a limit. Like, you can anthropomorphize lots of stuff, but cars, hard no. Kit or nothing. Michael. But then they very wisely, exactly, they very wisely bring Tarkin closer back to where he was as a character when the whole thing with Ahsoka went down. But you see her grow throughout the series. You largely experience the events through her eyes, and you don't really realize that until much later in the series. Rez is like, don't. Rez knows me very well. He's like, you wouldn't like those. You would hate them. I'm like, thank you. And again, my fears were like, what are they going to possibly do with this character? But again, I felt safe seeing her in Mandalorian. Like, okay, well, then there's clearly a good story arc. If these filmmakers that I know and trust have brought this character in, something really interesting had to have happened with her to make it mean anything. Because these guys don't just throw paint on the wall. Like, they're being very exacting with their brushstrokes.
Yep.
So it that's what got me through those early episodes and go, okay, this character's going somewhere. And Really, really love that character. And man, I did not ever expect her to become as conflicted as she did, but it makes sense because she's meant to be a mirror image of Anakin in so many ways. And they went in two different directions. In many ways, she takes on the role of an Anakin Skywalker. She becomes Anakin Skywalker in a way by the end of the series. And like if you close your eyes and just take Ahsoka out and put an Anakin Skywalker in there, like it would work if he hadn't turned to the dark side.
Where are you in Rebels?
I can tell you exactly because I have it paused in the other screen. I am about to start episode 9 of season 2.
Okay, so yeah. Okay.
So yeah, she's already shown up.
Yeah, but
what
things? There's
stuff coming. Is what you're telling me.
Yeah, just like what you just said about her, because it's not really in. I don't know how to say it.
I'll put it to you this. I'll put it to you this way.
You're gonna enjoy this.
One thing about this show that I think would have been really cool to be surprised by got spoiled for me by a screenshot that I saw.
Yeah.
I know that Ben Kenobi shows up in Rebels.
Yeah.
'Cause I saw a picture of him. I'm like, motherfucker. So I was just like, all right, I just gotta hurry up and watch all this. So I'm just caught up. And I also know that at some point she has to come face to face with Vader, and I can't wait for that. Like it has to happen. It has to. Like you didn't bring this character in for nothing. You didn't give me James Earl Jones for nothing. And that's something else. Whether we discuss it today or at a later date, I really want to think about like who do you get to voice Darth Vader in a post James Earl Jones world, because it's coming. It's coming fast. He's old.
Well, they've already kind of started doing that.
They've done it a few times. I think, and I'll stand by this, the guy that did his voice for Chad Vader, he ended up doing it in Force Unleashed. So this dopey YouTuber channel that did this really weird, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but Chad Vader, yeah.
It's
the laser scanning system. You know, it works.
I guess my thing is, I don't know how much more I need from Vader. But then again, I never thought I needed a Han backstory. And yet I enjoyed the hell out of that. So
the thing is that there's just based solely on Rogue One. If in a vacuum, just seeing him there's a lot of life in that character that you could breathe. And you don't have to have a James Earl Jones to do it. They've proven that. You don't have to have
Hayden?
No.
Wait, who are you thinking of?
The guy in the suit.
David Prowse?
Yes, thank you. So what happens to my brain when I come on this show? I can pull this stuff out of the air any other time. But you don't have to have David Prowse in the suit. So they've done that. What I'm hoping happens, and I'm certain that the technology exists, and maybe this would be the smartest move, because you can take Hayden Christensen's voice and you can morph it into that voice. And I'm sure he's capable of the delivery. Absolutely. In terms of like the pacing and the tone, but as far as the actual vocal effect to sound akin to James Earl Jones. If some guy on YouTube can do it just by doing this, I'm sure that they can pull off some audio version of a deep fake to make that happen, because it's been done. And I have confidence they'll be able to do that for the Obi-Wan series.
I was just thinking, so this was years ago when Roger Ebert had his jaw removed, his bottom part of his jaw removed, because of they modeled. I think in fact, maybe the last time you were on the show, I talked about this, but they basically took words from all of his was it At the Movies and sneak previews and all that stuff. Took all of his dialogue from there, from his audio commentaries that he's done for movies, and they pieced together basically a
library
text-to-speech program, so that he could type and it would speak in his voice. You would think that they could take someone's inflection, say James Earl Jones, map that out, and then you could, in a way, hone it. I mean, there's probably ways to do that. He would probably have to licenses.
So here's the deal. With the audio software you have, what you can do with that. You take that using that type of technology, and then you do the same thing you would do with like morphing technology. Here's James Earl Jones's natural speaking voice. Here's Hayden Christensen's natural speaking voice. Now we need to bring them somewhere in the middle.
Yep.
Then you can slowly edge it towards James Earl Jones. Then you just apply that effect to anything he says. And then you put it through the same vocal processor you do for Darth Vader. So,
you're probably right, Octavius. Matthew Wood probably already has this.
Right. Exactly. So my point being that like we have to start thinking about that. And I've got to be honest, he's the right age and he is the character now. And he's about to play Vader. He's about to be the most significant actor to play Darth Vader ever, because for the first time we're going to get the same person doing the voice and the suit. And in that world, I think you owe it to him and the fans, make sure it works properly and just let him voice the major stuff for Vader moving forward for a while. So we have one voice again, you know what I mean? Because we can't expect Mr. Jones to do this forever. We can't. It's cool. It's been amazing to hear his voice in so many recent things. But moving forward, you have to have like the standard, create a new standard. You know what I mean? But we'll see. But it's such an iconic voice. And basically I am just prepping myself for when he's not available. So they have to have something.
Yeah.
It has to be, the one role that he played that no one else could play is Thulsa Doom. Prove me wrong if they ever redo that, like Conan the Barbarian again. But Thulsa Doom was such a him role. And there's many things he's done that no one else could potentially do. But with Vader, you have an opportunity because of technology. And I'm just very invested in making sure that they pull that off, because I think that character, there's a lot of life in that character that you could, just if you look at Force Unleashed, those two games, like what they did with that character, and the voice was perfect, and I believed every second of the whole thing. I thought it was great. There's tons of Darth Vader stories you could tell, and I have no hesitance in them having some Vader stuff. I agree. We don't need it. Of course, we don't need it. We don't need a Boba Fett show either. We don't need this Obi-Wan Vader show either. But we're getting it, and if the opportunity is there, and you can get a good production team on there and do go. I'm gonna quote one of my favorite characters from the second Spider-Man movie from Sam Raimi. Go, like that's pretty much what you.
Yes.
The scene I'm talking about. Go. Yeah. I love that.
I just don't. So that's the thing that keeps getting me is people use this, and I think you've probably even seen this yourself.
I have a proof of concept, by the way. I was bringing this around to something that may help prove your point.
Go ahead.
We already have proof that can be done with Ahsoka.
Right.
We have a completely different actor playing the character, and convincingly. And Rosario Dawson, like that, you couldn't dream up a better casting choice for that character as an adult. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Like the look, they did the makeup right, the way she moves, the way she speaks. Spoilers, I went back and watched a few clips I just randomly found on YouTube, and I'm like, oh man, she's good. Perfectly, like nails the character in a big bad way. I hope I proved your point. If not, make it.
Well, no, I mean, kind of, but one of the things that always irritated me, especially around Solo, when Solo came out, people kept saying, nobody asked for this. You have to prove to me why this should exist. all this stuff, it comes off as being very entitled. And my whole thing is, we didn't ask for Star Wars. Nobody asked for Star Wars in 1977. That's the point of somebody who's an artist, a movie maker, TV show, whatever, comics, books, whatever. You come up with an idea and you say, let's see what happens.
Nobody asked for the Beatles. Nobody asked for Metallica. Nobody asked for Lethal Weapon. No one asked for the Game Chasers. No one asked for...
Right. That's the beauty of it. Sometimes you don't know what you need until you have it.
Right.
That's the beauty of great art, great movies, whatever. Is that you just like, oh my gosh, this fit something. That spoke to me in a way that I didn't even realize I needed. And that's one of the things
what the Clone Wars did for me in hindsight.
Yes.
Because you can choose to expand it or not, and you can choose to, and there's parts of the Clone Wars, like I've said, I'm always like, well, I don't need really need that. Like there's an arc towards the end. It's one of the last 2 seasons, and I've said it like multiple times with Mace Windu and Jar Jar Binks. I got a little more Mace Windu, which I dug. I got a little more Jar Jar that actually made me not hate Jar Jar. Like I'm like, okay, he's here, and I like him enough to not vomit when I see him on the screen now. Okay.
See what's weird? I felt the same way after my first time through. The second time through, I was like, okay. Like I can tolerate, not just not hate, but I can tolerate Jar Jar. This last time with Bucho, I'm like, Jar Jar is the reason that people hate Jar Jar is the same reason why people hate Rose in Last Jedi.
They think there's no purpose of that character.
They're pure though. There's nothing bad about them. They're all good. And people don't like that. People don't like somebody who's so pure of heart and can never be changed. They don't like that. And especially in Star Wars. They like their heroes a little bit flawed. Luke is flawed.
Well, Anakin's I would argue that
Jar Jar is the most pure character in all of Star Wars.
But I would argue he has his own... I think that Jar Jar's flaws come from his nature as opposed to something influencing him, right? And
he believes in people.
And his flaw is that that's his flaw, though. There goes my thing again. But that's his. I think his flaw is that he believes in people to a fault, which is how he was able to be manipulated in episode 2 and so forth. And but then in the Clone Wars, you get to see how he carries that guilt. He's still able to smile and have a laugh and try to bring joy and wants to help, but he has guilt. He's like, oh man, Misa fucked up, like he knows it. Misa,
I gotta tell you, by the end of this last watch through with Bucho, I unabashedly, I feel for the character of Jar Jar. I especially feel for Ahmed Best. Because that dude had it rough.
I saw a bunch of interviews he did around Celebration, 2 years ago, where he finally comes back to Celebration. He talks about how it felt. And man, am I glad. Because I know he didn't do the voice for the series because he had ducked out by that point.
Well, he did
some of the early stuff.
Well, he's hit or miss. Some of them are him and some of them aren't.
And sometimes you can tell and sometimes you can't.
Right.
But I would love there to be like a short, and I would love this. Whether it's animated or not. I want a short co-directed by Favreau and Filoni with Ahmed Best in the character. And I want it set. Hold that thought. I'm going to redo my thing now. I'm going to redo it. All right. I want it set the night after he says, Mr. Grant expounds to the Chancellor.
Right.
And then he sees what happens. The war starts, and he's at a bar. He's just kind of bent over the bar. What's wrong, buddy? You seem a little depressed. Oh, I think Misa started a war today. His bad boyo bongo Oh boy. Just, like I would love to see that. Just him like really like Misa, another beer side. Oh. Oh. And then he starts to drink it, and someone like if something happens that startles him, like something plays someone on the jukebox, he's like, oh, and like it juggles out and it breaks, and he goes, that's just how these days are going. You know, like
Hey, let's take a quick break. I want to fill up my water.
Philip? Well, you can take a break. I'm good.
Huh?
You held their attention. I'll hold their attention. You got a full screen for me, don't you?
Yes, I do. Well, then
do it.
Okay, go. There you go.
Yeah, I'm going.
The floor is yours, sir.
So yeah, but I would love to see that. I would love to see Jar Jar Binks just depressed, dejected, down and out, and have to like process that guilt and then decide what has happened has happened. Misa can only go forward now. It would be cool to have like this little tiny arc. It's a little funny. It's a little self-deprecating, and brings everything back to where he's just, I got to do what I got to do. I have to. My friends need me. The Republic needs me. My country needs me, and I can't feel sorry for myself. And I think it would be powerful. It'd be a way to bring that much more gravitas to the character. And the episodes that I'm talking about from before, you find out that there's someone out there that would fuck Jar Jar. Like, how amazing is that? You find out that he's got a long lost love who is in a really powerful place in their life. And she's like, you, sir, are fuckable. So to me, that's like the coolest, that they were able to take Jar Jar and make him legitimate, not just this slapstick character, and just are you back? Are you back? Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah. Spoilers.
Give me just a second.
But I guess he doesn't do that on camera. I totally do. But just the fact that they made Jar Jar fuckable was very, very cool. And I think that you could have some fun exploring that in a serious place. I'm not saying that I need more Jar Jar, but I kind of want a little bit more Jar Jar. Like I want to see more of where like it hits him, like the enormity of what's happening hits him. And I think they did a good job of exploring that in the Clone Wars, but there's a little more you could do, be a little bit darker with it. Bring that character around to where you see the flaws, and not in the way that we see other characters' flaws, but just him recognizing, oh boy, just like the whole thing. So there's stuff you could do. That said, I wouldn't mind, because they did get a mod best to do this. I've spoken about it so many times. The robot chicken bit, where he finds Darth Vader. Yeah, and he's like, quickly before the Separatists attack into the airlock. He's like, if this is escape, then where to pod? Is it Mr. Oh? Like I still love that.
Look,
I love the character. It was still funny.
That's something that Octavius brought up, something that I was actually going to bring up. There has been, and I know there's a lot of people that, because I hate the gatekeeping.
Yes.
Right? I hate the gatekeeping. Oh, you're a real Star Wars fan. No, you're not a real Star Wars fan, whatever. Based on what? Just because you've seen the Clone Wars, just because you've seen this, you've read this, we all love Star Wars here. But there is a tendency to want to, I'm just going to use the word, cancel people's opinions based on what they have or have not seen or have not read. I will say, though, that Bloodline is one of those books that makes the sequel trilogy better and makes some things, and you go, whoa, okay, I never actually thought about that. That's awesome. Bloodline
So,
is
like,
awesome for that kind of stuff.
I'll make a comparison. I think that a person who likes Star Wars on a surface level is perfectly fine. I feel like if you even just watch the series as a back end, you're a more informed fan. In the same way that someone who likes McDonald's cheeseburgers, you can't accuse them of not liking cheeseburgers. But if you put like a TGI Friday cheeseburger in front of them,
It's perfect.
if you put a TGI Friday cheeseburger in front of them, they're going to know more about what cheeseburgers are meant to be. And they're still probably going to like the damn McDonald's cheeseburgers. So that's what they grew up with, right?
Yep.
It doesn't mean you can't like this other thing on the merits of this. This isn't meant to ruin this and vice versa. They're different shades of the same idea, right? You know, just because, like, it's like saying somebody loves Rembrandt, but they can't, but you're not allowed to appreciate their kid's crayon drawing they put on their fridge.
Yeah.
Like you're not an art critic anymore because you like this. Give me a break.
Or it's like what I'd said earlier about you're a casual fan. You go to a concert, they play a B-side, and you're like, I don't understand it. Everybody's going nuts, and you're like, I don't know what this is. It doesn't mean that you're not a fan of that band. Doesn't mean that you're any less of a fan. It just means you're, you just, when you're having a conversation between two people, you go, oh, have you heard this? No? Oh, well, that's really cool. Yeah, I'll listen to that at some point. And then there's that person that's like, I'm not listening to B-sides. I'm not going to listen to the B-sides. I'm not,
And don't. It's cool.
And it's funny, but that's the problem with a lot of people that disliked. I feel like there's a segment of the fandom that didn't like a lot of what they did in the sequel trilogy because they hadn't paid attention to the Clone Wars. I'm not saying that that's bad, but you can't say that the people that enjoyed it are less of a fan when they've actually experienced more of the story. That's the thing that was really getting to me. And I feel like in a lot of ways, I feel like the chat is back, Bucho. The chat is back. Everything seems to be working again. I don't know.
I can't. I'm going to see if I can actually say something.
I can't type.
I can. I reloaded it and it works now.
Yay! I am back. Okay.
Yeah. So now it's working.
So, but anyway, all I'm trying to say is that there's a part of me that says that yes, it is what did we say? 53 hours. It's a time commitment, but it's one of those things that it really helps. And
it does.
As you haven't seen yet, you've seen part of Rebels, but then when you start watching the original trilogy, there are going to be scenes that you're going to go,
oh yeah, I bet.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's awesome. It's really awesome when that happens. So it's just one of those things where I feel like that there's an appreciation that I really look at what they're doing. I look at what Disney Plus has come to do for Star Wars. Even though there's a part of me that thinks The Mandalorian, I wish they would go a little deeper in lore, like real lore, not just, hey, we brought back the character from the thing. I want them to go a little deeper, but
Filoni's track record is such that...
Oh, yeah, we're going to get it eventually. And we're still in the early seasons, the early stages.
And I'm not even worried about that because I know it's going to happen. Again, I see his track record now because he has his hands on Rebels too, if I'm mistaken. Oh, yeah, in fact, I've seen his name like a bunch, so like you can tell. And for those of you that have like stayed away from, like, Clone Wars is probably an easy sell. Rebels is not an easy sell because it plays in a place where it's in between. The prequel trilogy is basically after Clone Wars by a lot. Basically, it's like maybe a couple, maybe like just a handful of years before Rogue One happens. So maybe 5 years. It's really close. You can just tell by virtue of where things are because the Empire's well established. There's been at least a lifetime since, so you're real close. And I will sell Rebels to you on this and this alone. Picture an action sitcom with a found family in that time frame. And the first thing you see and hear is Darth Vader. And it's Darth freaking Vader, right? So and it isn't just like a bookend or a crypt keeper situation. He appears randomly, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Hello, kiddies. You know, like
it's there's. I don't even want to say. I'm not saying anything about Rebels.
Yeah,
but
you don't.
I think that's one of the things that I've talked about before is that the original trilogy, I was completely blown away by how many times I'd seen those movies and really never paid attention to certain things.
Sure.
And after seeing Clone Wars and Rebels, going back and watching the original trilogy, there's a lot of like,
oh,
my brain was turned off.
I'm getting there, Bucho. Freaking jeez. I do have a hard out at 4:00 though. I have a hard out at 4:00.
Okay.
I have an appointment. But it can be like right at 4. So
right.
I will make this point and then we'll get into Ventress because he really wants to hear me say this. And by the way, Bucho, you guys have whole podcasts, like you have a whole podcast per episode. Okay. I'm trying to cram this into 2 hours. All right. Well, 3 hours. So cut me some slack, bro. Okay. I'm trying here. I love you. Just relax. I got this. I can always come back. And based upon what I've heard, I need to keep coming back. So it's fine.
Yeah. Why not?
So I can't wait to finish. To me, finishing Rebels means I've pretty much seen everything there is to see, which is really exciting for me. Like, because now that I've kind of like gotten bitten, the bug has bitten me. So I'm like excited. Like I'm caught up. And I can just kind of go back and watch whatever I want to watch. And now I have so much more Star Wars I can rewatch and have nostalgia for, which is amazing for me personally. But Ahsoka, comes up to their thing. And, Dooku, which is a cool parallel, a lot of good Dooku, but Dooku is just Dooku, and that's okay. Like Dooku just does exactly what you expect him to do. There's nothing unexpected about that character at any point. Not really. He kind of behaves right where he fits right where you expect him to fit. But what's interesting is that he has an apprentice that they didn't tell you about. And it's Asajj Ventress, who, just like Ahsoka, I'm like, I don't like this character. Why is she here? This is dumb. And then looking back, you're like, oh, you're supposed to think that. You're supposed to have like, she's not going anywhere. Sorry, she has places to be. And it's all over the place. Like you get this whole other backstory with where she comes from, with the witches, the witch sisters, the sister
Night
witches
sisters.
or Night sisters. Sorry, Night sisters.
Okay.
I knew I was getting there somewhere.
It's okay.
I took in a lot of Star Wars in a really short period of time, guys. So the names are going to be wrong. So, but she has a very similar arc, but it has a Sith tone to it because of just the way the Sith work. And I really felt bad for her when she got fired. I'm like, she's trying, bro. Like Christopher Lee let up on the girl a little bit. Like, come on. Like she did exactly what you asked her to do. And she accomplished stuff on those missions you couldn't freaking do, you old bastard. And there goes my mixer again.
No, yeah, it's actually kind of funny too. Just little tidbit. There's that one where she has that little side mission after she's been fired, right? With the bounty hunters.
I love that. That was a great way of.
I just thought about this. It parallels Ahsoka's walkabout in season 7.
Yes, it does. Where she's lost, and yeah. So you get to see that character. It's something where just when she was wearing out her welcome as a character, they write her out, but they didn't. They said, we can take her and do other stuff. And along the way, we find out that Maul's alive in a very, very cool way. But you can't get there without Ventress leaving. Like it all sets everything else up. So, Ventress goes off, is lost for a while, tries to make her way in the world with some bounty hunters, and she gets some of her own, gets her light back, gets her groove back a little bit. And she's like, you can still do this. You're still a badass, but you're not just one shade. You're multiple shades of darkness, and there is some light in you, and that you have potential as a person and as a character. Goes back to the Night Sisters and is like, Ma, I fucked up, Ma. Can I come home? Can I I've left your room the way it is, dear. Are my Nine Inch Nails posters still on the wall? Yes. All right, cool. Good. Like, do you have my Sisters of Mercy hoodie? Just where you left it, sweetie. It's all washed and pressed for you. And, she's like, do you still like those bands? Well, I'm into Behemoth a little more than I was, but, it's fine. Listen to a little Deed to Flesh now and again. Like, it's very Sith oriented, but it speaks to me. Whatever, just don't turn it up too loud past 11. Yes, Mom. And then
where was that episode?
It's headcanon, bro. But and then it's basically the next morning she wakes up and they're like, all right, you're my kid. They did you wrong. We're gonna fix this because these motherfuckers hurt my baby. And then they go pick ostensibly a mate for her. That part of it's kind of downplayed a bit in the overall arc. But when you look at where this went, like, whoa, think of what that means for him. Because they're like, he proved himself in combat to the death that I am worthy of being your husband. They get married, and then he goes with her to get revenge on Dooku. They fail. They deal a pretty harrowing blow to the guy, and kind of like, there are consequences for your actions, dude. I mean, you should probably prioritize getting those teeth fixed, but along the way, you need to get some stuff taken care of. I'm sorry, Christopher Lee had horrible teeth, dude. He really did. But so when Savage, like that whole arc, it's drawn out more than it probably needs to be, but it's an episodic television series. You're gonna get that. He gets cast aside, and he goes back to Mom. He's like, Mom-in-law, look what they did. He's like, I still love you. It's okay, but you had to go through that to get here. You have a brother. He's short. Well, he's shorter now, but by half.
3 feet tall. Yeah.
Right. But he's your blood, and he needs you. Go find him. And just when he's like, man, she tricked me, man. I hate my mother-in-law. He finds him, and as you would expect, the guy has gone insane. Anyone stuck in a cave eating scraps and who suddenly has spider legs somehow. They never really explain that, but they don't have to. It's really cool. Darth Maul's a spider. Come on, bro. That's pretty awesome. And then we come back to Ventress later in the series. I'm telling Maul to get to this. And so then Maul, through various things and happening, he comes home, and she gives him regular legs-ish. They're like a hybrid between regular legs and the spider legs. It's a cool thing. You're like, I could deal with this. But then later, I think it was during the Mandalorian arc, he gets regular legs. Like the Mandalorians, the Death Watch? Not Death Wish, Death Watch. I knew it was close. Death Watch gave him real legs again. Real, But then I'm like, I did not think I wanted that as much as I did, because when I got him, like, oh, he's got real legs. Oh, he's fully back, bro. He's got bionic fucking legs. Like, bring it. And then he just pretty much single-handedly totally turns the tide of that entire world and sets up the Mandalorian by himself. In a big bad way. And I'm like, oh, I gotta rewatch that now, kind of thing. But through all of that, by now Ahsoka has had this major issue. Like basically just does a brilliant remake of The Fugitive, and they're like, hey, so you done good, kid. We made a mistake. Our bad. You want to come back? She's like, nah, fam, I'm good. You would do me like that? I got shit to figure out. Bye, Felicia. Ooh, Felicia is, and then she leaves. And then she goes and has her little thing, which is a cool little arc. You could do a whole show about those sisters, by the way. That's great. Like, hope they show up in Rebels. They probably don't. That'd be great if they did. Be like, well, let me tell you a story. Like, that would be hilarious if those two sisters are all like in middle age and they're kind of fat and they're like, well, we got by. We made our money. We're fat and happy now. But man, when we were younger, wow, there's this orange chick. She's pretty cool. And then like the older sister's like, I did. Her like, you did not. You did not. Maybe I wanted to. She was annoying though. But she has that whole arc with them, which really is cool because it shows it served two purposes. It shows how Ahsoka is still lost, but still very much her. And that it forced her to realize that she wasn't done yet. Maybe she wasn't ready to go back, but she isn't so profoundly changed that there's no going back home. But she's got to find her own way back, which was important. During that whole fugitive debacle, she meets up with Ventress. That was cool. Because not only did they each have to face the truth that there's parts of them within each other and that they could learn something from one another. I think, honestly, the best part about that is what it takes to bring Ahsoka back from I hate you, Ventress. Because when she finds out that one of the purest characters in Star Wars ever, one of her best friends in the world, is capable of bombing the Jedi Temple and framing her for it, they didn't have the nuts to just say, I did it. Has to like go to this length where she's like, well, I'm going to frame this other person so I can continue. What else are you going to do? The evidence will eventually link back to you. Pretty smart for a stupid kid, but whatever. But when they realized that she was framed and Ventress was framed on top of it, they frame Ahsoka and then frame Ventress for framing. It's like frameception. And it comes back and you're like, by the way, she did it, and and Anakin was the one that figured it out. And you're like, bro, you can figure that out. You can't figure out that your buddy in the red robes, maybe he's a little off, maybe a little bit. Can't figure that out? No? Nothing? Okay, cool. So that's the only part of the Clone Wars that really kind of makes me go, however, they came so close, so many times, so close. In Yoda's arc during this time. When they could have had one episode where he's just like, oh, talk to Qui-Gon, I can now. Like that would have been fine. And that's what you think you're getting. No, ma'am, no, sir. He goes off on a freaking vision quest. It is great. And it humanizes Yoda, shows that he has flaws. And by the way, Sith Yoda, I want a plushie of Sith Yoda, man. It's really cool. He's just like, and you're like, but seeing that, he's like, I'm ready to kick ass. I want to find the Sidious guy and I want to kill him. And then he gets his chance, and then now it makes way more sense. Where he's like, I've failed. Like I screwed this up. Like, and then you have a second mini episode. Jar Jar and Yoda are sitting at a bar. Go, oh, bad day I have. Could have ended Sith today. I could have lost my robe. I did. Yeah. Bad day, brother. Like it would be cool. But it gives more weight to that fight because you see how many times, because like now that whole portion of where they're like, they figure out that it's Palpatine, the whole Jedi Order does that thing at the end of Naked Gun 33 and the third, where they all at the same time slap their foreheads like, oh, I can't, he's right there. How many times could they have killed him or just let someone else kill him and been fine? You know, even his capture, you know, they explain he got captured and all this stuff, but then, you know, it's everything. The last 3 seasons of Clone Wars just really just give you like so much more characterization and so much more justification for everything. And Ventress is a huge part of it. And I hope she comes back, man. I want to see her come back in something, somewhere. Maybe she's the bartender. I don't know. That'd be kind of funny. Oh, you're like she does. I'm just gonna tell you where.
Well, I can't say anything because no matter what I say, I'm giving something away. So
right. I know Maul's in Rebels. He's on all the artwork. Like I know that. He's on the artwork. I know Maul's coming back. So yeah. I was thinking like, I hope Ventress comes with him on some level. But my point, so like that's the thing. Like there's certain things you know they're going to do. There's certain things you hope they're going to do. But they did something that very few side stories or whatever get to do. It's something. I'll loosely paraphrase something that was said about Freddy versus Jason by one of the producers. He was talking about something that few films get to do when they're a sequel, where he's talking about Dream Warriors at the time, actually. And he says he says this is one of those films where you get to see characters acting the way they're supposed to. You bring back older characters from the series and they act as they're supposed to. You bring in new characters that we ultimately care about just as much as the old stuff, and you move the lore along all at the same time. Clone Wars did all of that and did what I thought was impossible, which was bringing new characters, which I thought all had to have wrapped arcs by the end of the series so that everything else could happen without their influence. They did that without killing them off widely. And it still made sense. And it just enriches the entire base of the universe of Star Wars. And I am such an appreciative and informed fan of Star Wars for having watched it. I'm glad that I did it, and I can't wait to do it again. But I'm going to pick and choose this time because now I know what all the episodes are. I'm like, I don't need this one. Chuffa. I was telling you, it was Chuffa. Yeah. Like, I'll skip most of the Jar Jar stuff. Chuffa.
Well,
you know,
like you said though, it's exactly like that. It's exactly like you've listened to a lot of the B-sides now.
Yeah.
And now you get a wider, like there are things that are said that you're like, oh, that's interesting, that now make sense, and that will make sense. And then again, I always go back to the fact that, you know, a lot of people were saying that, I mean, take away the fact that people wanted Luke in Last Jedi to be, you know, the badass from the beginning.
Yeah.
If all you did for however many years was look for artifacts, look for proof of what the Jedi were, realize that as great as Obi-Wan was, didn't tell him the whole story, didn't tell him how he fell and how responsible he was. I love that in episode 3. When he said, I can't believe I can't remember exactly the line, but it's something like, I can't believe I'm being asked to do this. And Ewan McGregor, the way he looks up at the council is asking you, and he's like, I'm the dude that's supposed to get him to do this. I don't want to do this, but I am pushing him into the lion's den. It's crazy how.
And then when they say goodbye, when they say goodbye. It hit hard when I saw the film the first time, because I was like, I'm pretty sure that's it. And now knowing that's it, and then having the lead up to it in the context, because season 7 gives you, for those of you who don't know, like, if I could with a conscience say there's only one season you got to watch of season 7, you're not going to understand half of what's going on, but it intertwined with episode 3 directly. Like, it's happening at the same time. The last 4 or 5 4 episodes are. I want to take all that. I want to intercut it and just try to make like the Watchmen direct, like ultimate cut version of it, to where it all just kind of, because I think that would be really interesting to see.
Oh yeah, for sure. My thing is, there's so much of that. I love the beginning, the very beginning, when he's like, it's like something, I can't remember exactly. It's been a while since I've seen episode 3, but he's like feels like a trap, and he's like, so what's our next move?
Spring the trap.
And it's that playfulness that you see, you see the movie, you go, yeah, it's pretty funny. You can tell there's some history
but
there.
There's so
you
much
lived
of
it
that
with them.
Exactly.
It hits completely different.
Everything from the opening of that film on is now earned because of this series. And if you even, most people are going to tell you of the prequels that they like the episode 3 the best. If that is you, go watch the Clone Wars. Put in the time. I'm telling you, and do it in chronological order. When you come out the other side and you watch episode 3, that's going to be such a great bookend. And then you're just going to want more Star Wars. And guess what? There's a shitload of good Star Wars out there. And we will have more to talk about with this stuff eventually, I'm sure. Because I'm going to finish Rebels at this rate probably tomorrow. So I'll have to come back and talk Rebels.
Look, Jim, I mean, I know you got to go, but man, that was so much fun. That's so much fun. And there's so many things we didn't even touch on. The fact that, I mean, you were a Marine. You know what I mean?
Dude, yeah. You know what? I'm going to call right now. Do you have anyone scheduled for next week?
I may.
Okay, if you don't, the next available opportunity, I want to be booked. We're going to talk about it in more depth, because I have like an hour. I want to talk about that one guy that does that one thing. And I'll go back and look at our conversation. For those of you who've seen the series, I think you know the storyline I'm talking about, where the clones, they have swapped out their general for a specific mission. And the whole time I'm looking at it from a military veteran perspective, and I'm going, dude, what are you doing? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, just from a tactician perspective, having a suspicion of what ultimately occurred, but saying, let's take that off the table and just look at it purely from an objective standpoint of, this is not how you treat soldiers. And I was furious. I was typing in all caps for most of this, kind of like, holy shit, I can't believe this motherfucker.
And I replied with smiley faces.
Yeah, because he's like, it's coming.
I didn't want to say anything.
It's coming. Because we got to talk about the chip. We got to talk about the chip, too. We have to talk about, so, like, those are the 2 arcs we have to talk about. Think of some other stuff that you want to ask me about. We'll make it a bit more formalized. Because we did 3 hours when we just scratched the surface. You got my overall thoughts. We'll dig deeper next time, whether it's next week or the week after that or whatever. Guys, I promise I'll come back and we'll expand on, but I got to go.
Yes. So, guys, well, here, I'll just say bye to you, and then I'll wrap up the show, because you got to go. But Jim, again, thank you so much. Everybody say bye to Jim. It was awesome having you here. So we'll catch you on the next one, man.
Yeah, no worries. I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here and listening to me yammer and yap and pretty much be an SIMP, because I can't say that word on Twitch anymore, for Disney. And we'll see you next time as soon as possible. You guys are the best. Rob, I love you. I'll talk to you soon.
Love you too, man.
Cheers.
All right. So, yeah. I'm just going to wrap it up, because I don't think there's anything else I can say For Jim. I mean, it was so much fun. I have to tell you, getting messages from him. I'm telling you, just tons. And it was just like, holy crap, this thing. And I'm like, oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to hear what he thinks about this and what he thinks about that. And then, of course, he's going through Rebels right now, too. And if you've seen Rebels, there's some things. There are things that happen in Rebels that are awesome. So, yeah. So, guys, I think what we'll do is we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Yes. And then, Tuesday night, we're gonna game some more. We're gonna be doing some voices. We're gonna be doing the goofy things. Sorry about the chat. I don't even know what was going on with that earlier. I guess it's Twitch being silly because it was silly yesterday. Anyway, y'all have a great rest of your weekend. Continue to be safe as well as you can. Because, it's crazy out there. But we'll talk to you on the next one. Bye, guys!